OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
A somewhat incredible night in the Champions League, particularly from Mo Salah, who had a hat-trick off the bench for Liverpool last night, and maybe he's back and all is right in the world, and there's no better place than Ibrox to go if you want to get right. They won 7-1 after a fairly mundane first half in that game. Napoli continue to be the best team in world football at the moment, beating Ajax 4-2 last night. Madrid and Brugge drew 0-0. Leverkusen were beaten 3-0 at home by Porto in that group. Barcelona and Inter played out a very controversial but brilliant 3-3 draw. That was a count now. And Bayern Munich are on the verge of winning that group with a 4-2 win in that game. Am I right about that? I am, yeah. Bayern Munich have essentially won that pretty much at this stage. Now, it is 7:31. I'm delighted to say Graham Hunter is with us straight off the bat this morning. Graham, good morning to you. How are you?
Double G, grand.
We are looking forward to the first Classico of the season at the weekend, and it's hard to know what the truth is about these two teams at the moment. Is it fair to say there's still a little bit of diesel in the tank for both of them?
Yeah, no, I think it's hard to know the truth at all. I mean, I like your allusion to the fact that neither of them look or feel exactly like we've become accustomed to over the last 20 years, if that's what you're getting at. Madrid, it's very easy to categorise, Ger. They're not hugely different from the Knicks that they were in at this stage last year. There are one or two new participants, if you want to look at it that way, and that Camavinga's getting a little bit more game time, and Tchouameni, if listeners to our viewers to Off the Ball at breakfast time haven't really seen Tchouameni playing for Deschamps France or anchoring the midfield for Monaco, prior to that Bordeaux, he's strolled into this team in many aspects. In the centre of midfield, playing where Casemiro used to, and there are things that he does that make you think this guy is going to be dominant and special and inspirational in central midfield. But there are very clear-cut things that he can't do yet that Casemiro did. And that comes with experience. The kid's 22, which now, because we've got Tyros everywhere playing at 16, 17 and 18, 22 seems geriatric, obviously. But from my school of things, when you're 22 and you're going to the most high-pressured team in the world, and you can throw other names, but they won't, they'll bounce off me, it's Madrid. And you play like him, then it's extremely promising. It doesn't mean that there aren't flaws. And that means that when you get Toni Kroos and Luka Modric rested, and when you get Benzema out for nearly a month, he's played 2 matches in 5 weeks, then you begin to see, and Courtois, the best keeper in the world, again, you know, you can throw candidates at me, but over the last 20 months or so, Courtois has been the best keeper in the world. There's been little glitches, and Madrid are a team that save their energy for the really big shows. We saw that last year against Chelsea and Manchester City and Paris Saint-Germain, in particularly the Champions League, not so much La Liga. So I think categorising Madrid is not difficult at all. One of the new faces, Rudiger. Again, if you didn't see the way in which he equalised in the 95th minute, putting everything, life and limb, on the line to head home and losing half his face, being stitched up, emergency stitched up in the dressing room and flying home with half of his face covered in bandages. I think that was a pretty iconic image of what it means for a newcomer to arrive at Madrid and say, I want my place, and I want my place particularly for the Clasico. And luckily, the sacrifice he made, Ger, probably means that Rudiger doesn't play the Clasico this weekend. That was one hell of a knock.
That's interesting. So what we're saying really is that if we didn't know about Real Madrid's ability to pace themselves properly, you might be a little bit concerned about some bits and pieces here. But because we've seen this movie, they're actually, it sounds like, in a great place at the moment.
As long as they keep doing what they've always done, which is like Pavlovian. The bell rings and they're hungry. A big team comes, or they're facing a big team home or away, and Modric will just be magical again at 37. Or Benzema will do something extraordinary, about to turn 35 in December. So it's all right to question them. It's all right to say, how long can you keep fighting like Jake LaMotta or Rocky Marciano? Because that's kind of what they do. They're like, oh, look, they're off the ropes. There's 1, 2, bang, down again. Eventually, in all sports, when you play like that, it catches up with you because hunger changes or personnel lose sharpness or age rusts you. I don't think it's yet for Real Madrid, not at all. And one of the things that might make you scratch your chin if you've either got, you know, your pocket money riding on Real Madrid, or if you're if you're a Real Madridista and you want to lord it over the Catalans when they come to a beautiful Santiago Bernabeu, which isn't finished yet, and they've messed up a little bit on the pitch, and the roof isn't fully installed yet, but you want to see what it's like, Ger. It's utterly... Listen, if anybody's got a couple of quid to spend over the winter, get yourself some tickets for the Bernabeu. Get to see Real Madrid. Look at the stadium. It's utterly mental. The worrying things will be, will Courtois be fit? He's had a back problem, sciatica. Benzema's been back, but not ultra sharp. And Ancelotti himself, you don't need me. I'm just relaying what Ancelotti says, really. They lack defensive intensity across the pitch. So there's the real possibility that we get another goal fest. Only 5 out of the last 10 Clásicos both teams have scored. I'm counting Liga Clásicos. In the last 2 Clásicos, Madrid haven't scored at all, and Barcelona won them both. Once 4-0 at the Bernabeu back in spring, once in Las Vegas. Clásico in Las Vegas. Rafinha's goal, hello Leeds fans, won that one. So Madrid are in a position whereby they should start as favourites, but it's the Clásico and you never damn well know.
Anything can happen. And Graham, you kind of you hinted at it in your piece on ESPN this week, and you're kind of contrasting the fortunes of Vinicius and Dembele. Look, Dembele scored a goal last night, but overall, I guess his form has been fairly inconsistent. Like, what do you put that down to? Because it's quite an interesting strand. What's happened since that 4-0 game you mentioned back in March, and now?
Yeah, look, he scored last night, but he also messed up repeatedly. He did that thing about, he's got the technical and athletic talent of a genius, and he's got the brain of a guy who likes to play with Lego. And that's a horrible thing to watch in any athlete, male or female, in any sport. You're like, go on, do it. Sure. And albeit that he was offside late on, there was a wonderful move where Barcelona ripped into the game is seesaw. It's a really beautiful game. It's the reason the Champions League exists. It was magnificent to be there last night, and Inter were shrewd and clever. But then Dembele bursts through. It's on a break, and Ansu Fati is to his right. Dembele just holds so that 2 men come to him. Ansu's on his own, and Dembele still tries to beat the 2 men and shoots it in the side of the net rather than squaring to Ansu. And in the end, the pass that sets him free by Lewandowski is utter black magic. It's unbelievable how he conjured that up from such a distance. Dembele's offside by half a metre. It's a cool decision, kosher decision. But there you saw the brain. The brain was not all the wires go together. But I think you can, like Xavi, for example, was asked in the press conference last night after the match, don't you think Dembele has got to score more? I totally agree. Now, Xavi has been the one that's fought to keep him at the club when no team in world football really wanted Dembele when he was in a free this summer. Xavi still persuaded the board to treat him as if he was a special footballer, because hidden in there somewhere, there is a special footballer. But all the wires don't. And Vinicius is different. When he arrived at Madrid, the contrast I was trying to make is that when he arrived at Madrid, people, I think rashly, and I shouted and screamed, as you both know I want to do, pretty much from the start, that they were judging him badly, that he needed a bit of patience. And now, lo and behold, he's a potential Ballon d'Or winner. He's extremely good. It's not just talented. He looked raw. He looked like a ball juggler. People said show pony. He learned, he listened, instead of a video, I said in the piece that you're talking about, I said, Xavi could well do with giving a DVD of Vinicius to Dembele. It's giving a DVD of the process, I should have said, because they've given him tuition. Big players have taken him aside because in good training grounds, it isn't just what the coach and his assistants do. So Modric and Benzema, particularly, Casemiro to some extent, have given Vinicius tuition over the months, and he's soaked it all up. He still does things that are a little bit irritating. Now he's trying to play referees and play the crowd. When he's got such an array of talents, those things aren't necessary. But the change in him, the way in which he's gone, I hear you, I'll do that. Oh, look, everything's better. Contrasts really brutally and starkly with Ousmane Dembele. But, I don't know why I didn't score. I don't know why I didn't pass. Don't expect me to learn. It's pretty sad to watch that. But football and Dembele being what they are, he just needs a little click, and on Sunday he could run the whole game.
You maybe wouldn't give him a cassette tape or a DVD of the last couple of Clásicos, like as you mentioned, Real have failed to score in the last 180 minutes. And you referenced it in the piece, though, like Vinicius, Xavi has almost always, in the last couple of games, deployed Araujo as someone to essentially man-mark him. He won't be around for Sunday, so maybe that spells a bit of danger for Barca, and Vinicius could have a field day.
Well, look, for my taste, if anybody's thinking about should I tune in on Sunday afternoon, do, because there's talent all over the pitch. They really don't like each other, the two teams, and it's extremely rare. One of the things that elevates this as a fixture, again, in any sport, but certainly in football, is that it's extremely rare that you don't get a high-tension, very exciting, high-quality game, often controversial. Not all football matches are guaranteed to give you that. This one does, and one of the reasons is exactly what you said. Araujo moved from centre-half to right-back. It's been a really good battle. It isn't that he's had Vinicius in his pocket. It's that he's dulled the impact that Vinicius can have. And as Barcelona got on top in the second Clasico of the season at Bernabeu last season, they won 4-0. You could see Vinicius's gas going down. In the Clasico in Las Vegas, again, it was very successful by Araujo, but he was fitter than Vinicius because Real Madrid had done less training and hadn't played any friendlies. 4-0 at the Bernabeu, 1-0 in Vegas. And it was a battle on its own. It was a battle where you could tune in going like, I'm interested in the result. I'm interested to see how Benzema copes. This is Lewandowski's first proper Clasico. But Vinicius against Araujo is a one-on-one battle for the ages. And because they're both young, we've got this for seasons to come. And it's one of these narratives that develops into a Gulf Stream that fills and heats the whole ocean. So it's a shame for the neutrals that we won't see that battle. But the risk factor is Jules Koundé wasn't supposed to be fit for this. He's made accelerated progress in training. Xavi said, I'm optimistic. There's a right good chance that Jules Koundé, just back from injury, gets thrown on against Vinicius, who'll try to twist him this way and that and sprint him. Now, that will be a battle. And like you said, it's the right word. That will be a risk. And if it's not Koundé, Vinicius will be rubbing his hands in glee and going, I can have all of those other guys on toast.
Barcelona's defensive record in La Liga so far this season is incredible. 1 goal conceded in 8 games. They have conceded loads of goals in the Champions League. So are they defending really well? Is there a mixture here? Is the truth more the Champions League than the La Liga form?
Yeah, there's a bit of a hybrid in that they were defending slightly better when they had Araujo and Koundé in their team because they're both absolutely excellent, young, vibrant, quick, intelligent, adapting to one another, adapting to being changed between right centre-back and a defensive 3 and a defensive 4 or at right-back. Those provisos, but with them in the team, Barcelona were defending a little bit better. Overall, they're very open. They don't hold possession anymore. I asked Xavi last night, you two of this main pieces of your armoury over the last 20 years have been long periods of possession. They were nearly 50-50 with Inter last night. They regularly now lose possession battles against teams. So if you don't hold the ball, the ball comes at you more. That exacerbates defensive flaws. And the other thing is this automatismos where they played really quick passes intelligently. Bang, 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 3-4 passes, and the opponents are lost. Now, when you don't do that, again, the ball comes at you all the time. Xavi is rotating footballers. He's had injuries to deal with, and he's been unsure which is his best system. So, frankly, Ger, no, they're not defending well, not at all. There are several La Liga games where they could have conceded 3 or 4. In most of those, they would have still, had they converted their chances in this hypothetical world, you build what if, they'd have scored more. But no, Marc-Andre ter Stegen in the La Liga has saved 19 of the 20 efforts on goal against him. And it's been that saved Barcelona from a very embarrassing start to the season. So no, they're not defending well. And yes, by and large, the Champions League is the right thermometer of Barcelona's security at the back.
Is there concern amongst the Barcelona fans, pardon me, that Xavi doesn't know his best system just yet? Or is that just part of the evolution? And that's how football is going. You can't just have one system where you're like, okay, I'm going to be in the style of Pep and my philosophy is going to sweep all before us. That actually, there's a bit of doubt in Xavi's mind. Is that a positive or is it a bit of a negative that he still hasn't got to that point where he fully understands this is the identity of this team and everybody who plays in it is going to be?
I think, Ger, if there isn't concern, there should be, because in spring, when he took over last November, so we're approaching the 1-year anniversary, he took over a side which in an off-the-record briefing, he told about 9 or 10 of us that it was a desert as far as the ideas he'd grown up with, that everything had regressed, that timekeeping was poor, training was slack, and therefore, the job he had to do was far bigger than he imagined. And if you look back or think back to the football that the team played once they got his ideas from January to about April when they ran out of steam athletically, it was stunning. They whipped Atletico by 4, they whipped Athletic by 4, they whipped Napoli by 4, they whipped Madrid by 4. And generally they were very quick, very exciting, and the system flourished. This season, they don't do the things that were iconic in the teams that Xavi grew up in. They don't do the things that were important in those months when Xavi's first half season looked as if it was going to flourish and promised so much for this. Is that to do with injuries? Is it to do with new players? I'm not sure. But they don't resemble a Barcelona side and haven't done for 3 or 4 games. And even when they've been winning, you're like, that's a really strange way for a Barcelona team to play, particularly one under Xavi. It's new. There are 2 very young players that are key, a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old in Gavi and Pedri. They're exceptional, but there's still an awful lot of learning. They're both tremendously slight and small. Therefore, Barcelona do get bullied an awful lot. Barcelona athletically aren't as strong as some teams that put a heavy premium on, can we out-jump you, can we outrun you? And at the moment, given that Barcelona don't have a prime Piqué and a prime Messi or a prime Eto'o or a prime Iniesta or prime Busquets, Barcelona, even at the very best, they always found that a test. You know, we can jump higher than you, we can knock you over, we can outrun you. Xavi at his prime said, if we go 1-0 down to a team like that, at his playing prime, I mean, he said, we get nervous. So right now, they're not in that nick. They don't have such good footballers. So it might be that this is very fledgling. It might be that they're in a Bambi state rather than outright getting it wrong. Might be. But it's a very odd situation right now. And the fact that they're leaders going into this Clasico and that all the dialogue last night was about, we'll go leaders, we want to come away from the Bernabeu as leaders. Yeah, fine. But there are deeper rooted problems to do with this stage of the evolution of the team under Xavi.
It's funny because like this week you could look at the European results and go, oh, this is all set up on a bit of a knife edge. They're 2 teams at similar stages of development, but from what you're saying, Real Madrid are going to be very confident and comfortable with their scenario, whereas there's, you know, the usual self-doubt from a team that hasn't been at that champion level just recently in Barcelona.
But the contrast is stark, yeah, and it's set up nicely, but for, if you'll pardon me, a different reason. You know, Carlo Ancelotti's about to overtake Alex Ferguson's record as the man with the most match wins in the Champions League. And, you know, he's lifted the Champions League as a trophy, as a coach in different clubs. He's on the point of retiring, and Xavi's in his first full season at a senior club as a coach. Sorry, Qatar, and Al-Sadd, but, you know, that's a fact. And Barcelona, in terms of personality, are still worrying about what happens when Busquets isn't so relevant. Where are we post Messi? Why haven't we got a player who can put a sticking back plaster on all the problems? They're still in a club, not just in search of money to solve their debt problem, but they're still a club in search of an identity. And Xavi is very new in his project. So I think that they're fundamentally different from Real Madrid, where they've kept Kroos and they've kept Modric, and Militao now looks like a veteran, and Alaba's brought experience last season, Rudiger this season, Benzema and Vinicius as a partnership. As a partnership, produced 111 goals and assists last season alone. 111 between the 2 of them.
It's not bad.
And they didn't even used to speak. And this season, Dembele's given Lewandowski 1 goal assist and hasn't scored himself domestically, and until last night hadn't scored at all. The contrasts are gigantic, Ger, but you've spent your life on off the ball talking about this football, and the Clasico means that no matter how you go into this, any kind of result could be spewed out.
I'm looking forward to that one now on Sunday afternoon. You've whetted the appetite, Graham. Did want to ask you about Ger Casillas and Carlos Puyol. Fairly damaging tweet from Iker Casillas, and look, he's come out and said that his account was hacked, which is unfortunate for him. I don't know what Carlos Puyol's excuse is, but damaging to the LGBT community for sure. Just interested to see what the reaction has been over in Spain to this news, Graham.
Can I put myself in the firing line, which is a stupid thing to do because it's not what you asked me. Over here, there was initial coverage in that news flurry way, but it's caused me to stop and think a little bit, because initially when it came out, I saw what Iker Casillas was doing. I don't think he was hacked, in my opinion. And given my age and my background, I thought, okay, there's a little joke at the expense of the tabloids and the photographers and the rubbish that's spoken about Iker Casillas. There's a little joke that hasn't done damage to the gay community, to the LGBTQ community, because when I was growing up and in my professional working lifetime, it was unthinkable that a massive male superstar could use the word gay about himself. I thought initially, well, it's maladroit, but this doesn't do any harm. And that shows the bubble I live in and the age I'm at and how I needed to stop and think and react. And Spanish media, just again, to answer your question, I haven't really done that at all. But to have, I felt that Puyol and Casillas were joking about that in a non-ultra macho masculine way, which is what I grew up about, where if you used those terms, they were pejorative, they were derogatory. And I didn't think that either of them did so. Now, if once you're educated, which you won't be by the Spanish media in large terms, there are individual pockets of modern common sense. I forgot about the fact that where I work, where I meet many men and women who are gay, and it's just a simple fact of life, and nobody would be prejudiced against them, or nobody would react badly against them. Everybody would, or the majority of people I work with or know would encourage them to come out, and we'd all treat them exactly like anybody else. I forgot about scared people. I forgot about young people who might think that that was a put down. And I think that was the tone of your question. So I found it, salutary. I still think that some of the vehemence about the subject should have been about the vehemence of some of the bigots' reactions. And again, in my opinion, if the lawyers are worried, I wish that Iker Casillas had taken better advice and said, listen, I'm sorry, and did what Puyol did and said, that was maladroit, I apologise. Now, Iker did say, I've been hacked, but all the same, apologies to the LGBTQ community. However, I've found it salutary and found it interesting that it was a lesson learned for me, not to forget that there are still people within society or sport who might be scared to be ridiculed, scared to come out, and they shouldn't be. And I'd assumed that we'd begun to move in our world, in this bubble of the world that you and I and the listeners exist in. I genuinely thought things had changed and improved, whereby you could experiment with humor like that because it wasn't pejorative. And it seems that I was wrong on that, and Casillas was wrong on that. But there was a stage when I was growing up or beginning as a journalist where phrases like that would have been taken as, well, this is bringing the subject out into the open, and you can tell from their tone that it's not meant to be aggressive or a put down. And therefore, if that phrase becomes mainstream, then it's opening things up. And that's not the way that the majority of people who campaign on behalf of that community saw this. So it's been salutary. It was clearly at best maladroit and at worst a mistake, a very poor mistake. But it's interesting. I'm not certain how much damage has been done other than to Iker Casillas himself, in my opinion. But you asked, and it's been a subject that's been on my mind over recent days an awful lot. And maybe people will think I've been boorish or foolish there, but I think in order to further the debate, a little bit of honesty was merited there. If you're having me on the radio, I should probably own up to mistakes.
I think it's all fair enough, Graham. To be honest, 100%. I have one last question for you. The Mbappe situation presumably is causing a lot of people to be interested in I mean, we were kind of thinking the world order is set. Mbappe's in PSG, Haaland is where he is, but Karim Benzema is at a certain age. Is all of a sudden 300 million the type of thing that Real Madrid do? Yeah, we can do that. Why not? We'll get the money back.
Well, they'd have to outbid Liverpool according to the drum roll in the media. Look, here I go again, because I've got no doubts whatsoever that some of the headlines that you read, some of the columnists and the vituperation, I should probably ignore. But I've really hated seeing the outpouring of anger and disrespect for Mbappe without him having spoken. Was there a briefing? Yeah. Is he within his rights to say last summer, no, I'm staying, and then get ticked off with something and then want to go? I think he is within his rights. And until he eventually speaks about it, I won't judge him in that condemnatory way, which has been a really big part of the last couple of days, a really big part. In greedy terms, I would give almost anything to see Mbappe playing in La Liga. I know that the debate about him and Haaland is one that, we've been speaking about for a couple of years now. And although Haaland is a phenomenon, it pleases my eye more to watch Mbappe. That doesn't matter, tinker's cost really in general. I think Mbappe is almost being underappreciated, undervalued. His ability, his athleticism, his from the outset of his career, his ability to shoulder pressure, the fact that as a youngster he was pivotal in winning the World Cup, and the fact that there are massive far away boundaries for him to reach playing in a better club, in a better outfit than Paris Saint-Germain, and I mean those words, better constructed squad with much smarter, more experienced footballers than he's got around him as the general squad, without a manager in and out every year on the whim of the owners. I want Mbappe to lead Paris Saint-Germain, no question. After that, where he goes, best of luck to him and his team and how they choose it. But he's sensational. And he shouldn't exist only in the, is he better or is Haaland better? Mbappe is a gift from the heavens to all of us who love this sport. He's utterly remarkable. He's beautiful to the eye to watch. Bring it on. Yeah, let him leave. Let that be a lesson to Paris Saint-Germain about how they improve, how they change their outlook, how they sign, how they develop, how they treat star players. And yeah, for my taste, please don't go to the Premier League. Please come to La Liga. I don't care if you play for Villarreal or Real Sociedad or Real Madrid, but come over here. That man is the reason, another little microcosm of the reason that we love football.
Graham, brilliant as ever. Thanks a million. Cheers. Some interesting thoughts from Graham there. The Mbappe thing, right, because the reason I brought it up there at the end was because Paris Saint-Germain have denied that they've pulled the Barcelona trick of hiring a digital agency to smear Mbappe. If I was going to do something along those lines, I might not do the very thing that got one of the other super clubs in the world who exist as my peer group in so much trouble, because it's clear that it's going to leak. It's like so obvious. Yeah. You're paying a company. Now they're denying they did it, so I have to take it at face value that they're 100% accurate, and they did not do that. Barcelona, of course, did do it. Mm-hmm. They hired. It's like maybe it didn't work.
The tricks that go on behind the scenes.
Getting caught is the only crime. Is that the story? Yeah.
And look, from a selfish point of view, we'd love to see Mbappe in the Premier League. I know Graham wants to see him over in Spain, but just that there is that conversation now, and he's kind of stoked at himself. I don't know if Mbappe starts some of these stories. He probably does. We all know what goes on behind the scenes of football and getting things into the press. Well, why wouldn't you?
We need to do a bit more detail and dig in on the Mbappe story, but I think he could both be right and wrong here. The club could be really badly run. He might be going the wrong way about getting that fixed. Now, maybe it's too late and he just wants a divorce, and after the World Cup we'll see what happens. But right, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day, as we've done there. Graham Hunter at 7:30. Trevor Fletcher is joining us at 8:10. We've got sports pages at 8:30. Ronan O'Kelly is going to talk to us about the Irish Parkinson's golf team, and then John O'Keeffe and Jimmy Maher are going to join us in studio at 9 o'clock. At 9:30 we'll play you some of the highlights from Wednesday night rugby. Now, here is Nathan in conversation with Vera Pauw yesterday after Tuesday night's heroics. Here she is talking about where Ireland will play their warm-up games ahead of the World Cup next year.
What are your initial thoughts on friendlies next month, the break in February, as to what you're going to do and what you want to do?
Yeah, and next month we've spent the money. We've spent the money for the Georgia game because they were We were forced to play in June, and they were 7 weeks out of league and out of competition, so we needed to have a long camp there. But I have the feeling that the FAI wants us to play, and I think that we will sell out our stadium.
I think you might get a big night in Tallaght, all right.
Yeah. Well, Tallaght is under reconstruction, so who knows? The Viva Stadium.
You're putting it out there now.
But maybe going into the country, that will also be nice to show ourselves in other areas of the country, because it's time for that. Let's see how we go, but we will build from there. After November, we will build a program that hopefully gets us the right opponents to be ready for the World Cup.
Would you like the Netherlands in the draw?
No.
You couldn't deal with it?
No, too much happened there. If we play the Netherlands, that would be not easy. Of course, I will deal with it. I'm a professional. We go for it, but that's the only country that I would not like to have in my group.
All right. Yeah. No, that's straightforward. Don't want that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I never actually thought about that, because from our point of view, from the media point of view, you kind of think, oh, what a great story. Vera Pauw taking on the Netherlands at the World Cup, but you can understand why she wouldn't want to face them.
Like, parallels with 88, right?
Yeah.
They've been non-stop the whole way through. And, you know, Big Jack, of course, did obviously end up with England, and it worked out all right.
Well, surely our Dutch luck has run out with being drawn with them in the men's draw for the next tournament. I mean, that's
I don't know. Maybe we're going to beat them twice.
maybe. I'd like to avoid them as well. I'd like to avoid the USA, Brazil.
I want to play them all.
You want to play them all?
Yeah.
I'd love to get to a last 16 though. Which is still it's still doable in a tough group, of course. But there is an argument for a New Zealand Denmark type group as third seed. It's going to be difficult either way, but they're more than capable of getting to a last 16. As Louise Gwynn was saying yesterday, like, she thinks Ireland are going to be the third most supported team at the World Cup after the hosts, and fair point with the amount of Irish over there and the Irish that will travel over specifically as well. I think we could almost have a home advantage of sorts.
Yeah, for sure. Front page of the Daily Star this morning. Ooh ah up Vera. That's the tab of the morning to you. Girls in green hailed. Who's doing the hailing? The Wolf Tones. Wolf Tones slams begrudgers as team sorry for chant row. So, Brian Warfield supports Vera Pauw and the team after ooh ah up the rah chant. You would expect him to say.
They're up to 13 in the Irish charts, I think.
Are they?
They tweeted last night, the Wolf Tones, saying that the song is... That was only as of last night. I don't know where it is at the minute, but it's kind of climbing its way back up the charts.
Let the people sing their stories and their songs and the music of their native land is what James McLean tweeted over a picture with him and the Wolf Tones. And so Brian Warfield is saying he's blasted the begrudgers. The song they celebrated with was their own choice. It happened to be a great song written by me, and I support the song the whole way through. Brian explained he wrote Celtic Symphony in 1987 to celebrate the centenary of Glasgow Football Club, Celtic obviously, and the Up the Ra lines refer to graffiti he saw on the wall. The people in Glasgow always remember the days they supported Ireland for civil rights, and who's to say it's not the IRA of 1916? It's not specified in the song at all. I mean, it's interesting.
The old IRA, yeah.
The death of the author is one of those courses you do in first year in English in college, and it's like, you know, we the author's intention is not important, it's how we interpret these things. But here's the actual author saying, well, I'm not sure which one I was talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's too long ago for him to remember.
Could have been anybody.
1987, as he said.
It's a great chant for Irish people because we do love our heroes and we don't like to be bullied, he said. It's not specified in the song at all. So, Shane?
I think a lot of people didn't realise that this was actually, because a lot of people just heard the Up the Ra chant and were familiar with the Up the Ra chant, maybe weren't familiar that it was from the Celtic Symphony song by the Wolf Tones. So it's kind of opened people's eyes a little bit. Look, it was a bit of a storm in a teacup for me for a large part yesterday. I see why there was an element of anger over it, and people are entitled to get offended over whatever they want to get offended by, and they will. But it was just one of those stories that, I don't think any of the girls in that dressing room were singing it as a message of support for IRA atrocities during the Troubles. I'd certainly like to think so. I don't think any Irish person of right mind who sings that song would be singing it in those pretenses. Like,
you can't,
there's an element.
I'd say there's a large portion of people who supported the armed struggle and all of the things that go with that. Because that's if you can't be a little bit in, you can't be like, oh, it's only when they hit military targets. Because that's the whole point of the bombing campaign was to,
like
inflict terror.
100%. And like I was saying to you before the show, like I've been involved in teams in Monaghan where that song has been, amongst other songs as well, been sang, fairly passionately sang by.
Do people know the words of it?
Oh, every word.
All right.
Like, here we go again. We're on the road again. We're on our way to paradise. Like, and the graffiti on the wall. There's like, it's. If you just take that little element of the song, the up the ra part, it's like there's a lot more to the song, which again I don't think a lot of people realised. Like it started an interesting conversation, and the conversation was very much going against the girls in the dressing room. And again, why would they video? There was cameras in there anyway from the national broadcaster, so it was hard to avoid. But I mean, certain elements of the media asking Irish girls about education and do Irish players need to be educated, that's probably what essentially brought the story full circle, and kind of maybe leave them alone a little bit, because I don't know if the Anglo-Irish history chapter in British schools is too in-depth.
Good opportunity for us to remind everybody about the truth of that relationship.
Yeah.
Isn't it? We should take this opportunity to go, it's a very good point you raise. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Well, I genuinely don't know how much British colonialism and
Zero.
like the famine or the Bengali famine.
The Marvel has just arrived. They you know, there was like a teleporter from Greece to here, and they just arrived, and we've got them, and all that money we have, we just found it.
Yeah.
It just nothing
Crown
to do.
jewels. Yeah. So it started a fascinating discussion, and like we had it in our kitchen last night at home. I think there was kitchens across Ireland having this discussion last night.
Yeah.
And I understand how a certain generation, maybe who lived through the Troubles, find it very insulting to hear that song, and I accept that. And there is an argument that in order to move on with the peace process and to maybe go towards a united Ireland, we do need to kind of pull back from songs and chants that have that kind of those kind of lyrics in it.
Or we all need to stop getting offended by chants and songs sung at various stages. Like, I don't know.
In celebration.
Well, but you know, here's the thing, right? So the once you start, I realise that again, this is not a lot of people are going to support this, but I don't get offended by the English fans racially profiling me and accusing me of membership of the IRA, because I think you're dumb. I think if you're singing that song, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And I don't really care what Linfield players sing in those videos that were in all the what about. I don't really care that Declan Rice did this in the past, because I think Declan Rice was a child when he was doing that, and clearly he'd learned it in the team environment. That wasn't something that he licked off a stone. He didn't just come and, you know, so obviously somebody in the team was teaching him up the ra, which is what he tweeted twice when he was playing for Ireland underage. And they were like, oh, you never mentioned that. I was like, well, you know, he was only a kid. So like, I do think that the line of questioning yesterday was way over the top and kind of lacking some self-awareness. But like, do we not need to get to a point where none of this matters, as opposed to we can't say anything for fear of annoying people, because then they'll never trust us for United Ireland? The people who were singing the FTP and whatever the rest of that one, they're not going to believe in United Ireland on the basis of us not singing songs.
Yes. Yeah,
do you know, we're not going to win hearts and minds
people
by
are
like,
entrenched.
oh, you're right, we shouldn't do that. Like, they're just going to, you know, the people who are building the giant bonfires with the Ivory Coast flag on it aren't suddenly going to go, yeah, you guys are great because you stop singing up the ra in your dressing rooms. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I think we need to get to a point where none of it matters. Like, burn your bonfires, march your marches,
sing your songs.
I don't care.
Yeah.
But ultimately, is this better for us, all of us, if we have a shared political system with one currency and a government that we elect and a shared idea of what it means to treat all of our people equally?
And
like a lot of this seems to me to be a distraction from the fact that, or invented to try and make people fight who are actually the same. Like,
yeah, 100%. And like, I know it's a different time, and Ray Houghton and different team members of Jack Charlton's team from the 90s spoke about how they used to sing songs, Sean South of Gary Owen and songs like that in the team bus. And it's just one of those things, like, where do we stop? Because The Men Behind the Wire was a song financially backed by the IRA, by the Provos in the 80s, to keep it in the charts and keep the support for the IRA armed struggle there. That song is still around. Sean South, as I mentioned, is still around. Maybe they don't have quite outgoing phrases like up the ra in them, like this song, but yeah, for me it's a bizarre one. It has certainly started a conversation, and I know people in pubs up and down the country, and like Mick made the point on the show last night. This is a song that's played in Coppers every weekend. It's played in. I'll be in the pub in Monaghan this weekend, and this song will be played, as it was maybe last weekend before all this even started. Not saying that's right or wrong, but people, as you said, they're entrenched in their own views regardless. I don't think the girls expected to start a mini political Anglo-Irish discussion off the back of it. It was just a song amongst songs that they were celebrating to during the night, getting carried away and caught up in the celebrations as you're wont to do. And fair play to them. I don't think this impacts
the
whatsoever.
Taylor Swift song hasn't got half as much play.
No, I mean, poor Taylor Swift won't rise up the charts because of it. The Wolf Tones getting all the credit, but
and all the money.
Yeah, but
Taylor Swift's over there. What do I have to do?
But as far as the girls are on that team are role models, for me, it hasn't changed one iota because of this.
Not a bit. And I know everybody's like, oh, this is a big wake up call for them. But actually, like in 3 weeks' time, they'll hopefully have forgotten all about this. I mean, maybe they won't film themselves or they won't live stream. They'll film themselves in the change room, but it'll be like do not stream this live. You may stream an edited version later on if you want, but just make sure there's nothing in it.
I was looking at the social media reaction yesterday, and people who I know and respect on social media putting up the comments like, I don't know if I can support this team anymore. And I was like, are you actually serious?
Yeah, that was a level of madness. That was a level of I'm getting offended on behalf of a bunch of other people, and I'm not sure I've actually checked in with them if they actually care about this much, because like I don't know. I mean, certainly, I think most families who have any connection with the North know somebody who has been damaged physically or psychologically by the Troubles. And honestly, if like the singing of the song is more important to you than the damage that was inflicted, then there's something wrong with that. And it's not the same thing. Like, it's not the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and those people, I should say, those people who, a large portion who got offended originally, maybe toned down a little bit when the line of questioning to Chloe Mustaki came around as well, and people were like, as you said earlier, it's okay for us to give out about it, but as soon as the Brits come on board and start giving out about it, okay, well maybe it's calmed the whole story down a little bit.
Well, that was the end of it.
That was the end of it. It completely, the story died down. And I was wondering myself, how long is this story going to last? Like, we need another
Champions
big...
League last night, obviously,
it kind of took away.
It's always going to fix things, you know.
Yeah. So it started an interesting conversation.
It wasn't in the middle of summer when there was nothing to talk about.
Yeah, but still role models and
still absolute legends who just qualified for the World Cup.
Yeah.
This is not in any way tarnished anything that has happened.
100%.
It's like everybody needs to just calm down and get over it. 12 minutes past 8 this morning. You can give us your views. 087 9180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Paul McGrath is trending. Is that because of Paul McGrath?
There's another one as well. Yeah, the exact same song, just lyrics kind of changed. So should we be offended by that as well?
Well, did the Wolf Tones song come first? Is that what?
Yeah. The Wolf Tones song came for the centenary in 87. So,
but Paul McGrath, was it only 88 that came around?
I guess it must have been.
So it's born off that,
straight off the back of the song.
Yeah,
that was my assumption on it. Now someone can tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think that essentially came about from the song. By the way, like the song itself, in and around those particular lyrics, is actually a great, really catchy song with the Wolf Tones, and like it's going to continue to be sang. Now those lyrics are obviously going to spike people.
Big thing in the mail yesterday, which I was doing the rounds in my mates' WhatsApp groups, that Gen Z.
Yeah. I think I'm a millennial, maybe just before.
Oh, okay. So you're too old for the Gen Zs as well. Jesus.
Yeah.
We've screwed up the casting here. Okay, well then you won't get this at all. But apparently the thumbs up in WhatsApp is like a giant no, because it's very passive aggressive.
Here.
The bit where I'm like, I agree with you. Well, when I saw that, I was like, now I get why everybody has their knickers in a twist about the video of the team singing. It's because they just don't have a clue what's going on.
Yeah.
They feel like the shifting tides are beneath their feet and they're getting tilted over and drowning in the water, going, how can they be singing this? It's like, thumbs up.
I didn't know that, by the way. That's mad.
There you go. You're also all 14 minutes past 8 this morning. If you've got a view, we'd love to hear from you. 087 180 180 is the WhatsApp number now. Kathy McNamee, Emma Byrne and Karen Duggan had the latest celebratory episode of Koi Gig. You're going to hear a clip of it in just a moment. Obviously talking about Tuesday night's history making, and specifically how Denise Sullivan and Lily Agg dominated the midfield battle against Scotland to help book Ireland's place at next year's World Cup. The Koi Gig pod on OTB SPORTS is in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. We're back afterwards with Trevor Fletcher, who's just led Shinrone to their first ever Offaly senior hurling title, beating Kilcormac Calahi in the process, a club very close to his family's heart. Back after this.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The only thing you care about.
That's right, the Football Pod is back. If GAA is the only thing you care about, make sure you don't miss the return of Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue.
You just knew it was coming down the tracks.
Subscribe to the Football Pod wherever you get your podcasts.
I was talking to some of the Scottish players and they didn't say anything. They didn't give anything away, but I could tell that they were going to try to win it in midfield. They thought they were going to win it in midfield. They thought with their Caroline Weir and Erin Cuthbert in their world-class players, they thought that was where they were going to win it, and they weren't really worried. Lily Agg and Denise O'Sullivan from minute one absolutely bossed that midfield and absolutely shunned Erin Cuthbert and Caroline Weir. They were not in the game. They completely marked them out of the game. I think it's not, I'm not going to say the worst performance from them, but they'll certainly be very disappointed because they didn't even look like they're the type of player they can be. And that's our midfield.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things I wanted to ask you guys, because I feel like a lot of the analysis today has been about how good we were, but no one has actually looked at Scotland and said, like, well, what did go wrong there? Because, I mean, they went in heavy favourites compared. I mean, I always thought it wasn't as heavy as some places were making it out to be, but they just didn't seem to really be there. And like they had talked so much in the lead up to about their mentality and how much that had changed, but they seemed nervous or something on the pitch. Like they just didn't seem to settle in.
I think that's down to what Emma said, the midfield battle, because they thought Cuthbert and Weir can dominate a game and then they'll set up chances for their more forward players. But when they weren't having a free time on the ball, they were going long an awful lot. And we play 5 at the back. Like that's long ball into girls who were fantastic headers of the ball, played into our hands. They never once got in behind us, apart from the potential second penalty. But we learned.
I don't know what you're talking about, Karen.
Yeah, I mean the spaces were just condensed for them to play in. So, yeah, I just thought they looked devoid of kind of any flair once we had those banks up in front of them. They weren't able to pull us out of position in any way.
No, it was shocking. It was pretty shocking from them. I mean, they must have woken up this morning and thought they'd been hit by a bus, because for me, it was like, what the hell is happening here? They have no plan B.
I mean, at the end, how many square passes did the centre backs play to each other in the 87th to the 96th minute?
Yeah, they'd no plan B. The plan A was to get on the ball in midfield and to put a diagonal ball behind into our channel. They tried to do that every single time and it didn't work. It didn't work for them, not once.
Off the Ball Daily.
A home for your favourite podcasts from Off the Ball. The performance rankings, a slight tangent, the crappy quiz, and you had to be there.
5 goals in 20 minutes. It's just, you can't do that. It's the Premier League. You can't do that.
Subscribe to the Off the Ball Daily podcast feed right now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
It's 18 minutes past 8. We're turning our attention to club hurling, and I'm delighted to say we have Trevor Fletcher with us. Trevor, good morning to you. How are you?
How are you, Ger and Shane? How are you doing? Are you well?
Yeah, very good. Where did you grow up?
Rossgrey. I grew up in Rossgrey, County Tipperary, and moved into Liga, and then I moved over to New York for 4 years. Then came back to Kilcormac.
So Kilcormac is where you kind of became an adult. Is that fair? Or what age were you when you were?
No, well, no. I went to New York when I was 23.
Okay, right.
I came back then in say 27, and I moved to Kilcormac. Then I met my now wife in New York, who's from Kilcormac. So we moved to Kilcormac then, and we had our eldest daughter was born in New York, Kayla, and then we were after having 2 more boys now since then, Owen and Lachlan.
Okay, right. So you married into Kilcormac Callaghy?
Yeah, I married into Kilcormac Callaghy, yeah.
Very good. And you raised your kids in Kilcormac Callaghy?
Yeah, the kids are all, Bar Kayla were born in New York, but yeah, all the kids were raised in Kilcormac.
And then at the weekend, you went up against Kilcormac Callaghy in the Offaly hurling final?
I did. It was a strange one, very strange.
What was the crack with that? When did you join Shinrone as manager?
So this is my second season with them. So last year I was with Shinrone, joined them last year. So this is my second season with them. I would have finished playing senior hurling with KK. I'm still playing a bit of junior with them, but I finished senior in 2016.
Okay, right. Is it true that you went and beat them in the county final and then lined out for the juniors a couple of hours later?
It was actually the day previous. We had the junior A semi-final against Ballinamere on a Saturday at 3 o'clock, and then I suppose 25 hours later I was battling against them.
I mean, this is one of those typical brilliant stories that the club scene throws up from time to time. But what's it actually like for you? I mean, you've got a job to do, and you've been slaving away for 2 years, and we all know the level of professionalism that goes into being the manager of a club team, particularly a senior team who believes they have a chance of glory. Because if you're not at it in every training session, somebody on the team is going to be complaining. So you have to be at it, and it takes up all your thoughts and minds. But at the same time, it's against a club who, you've made your home, and I'm sure you've volunteered, and I'm sure that the family are very committed to as well. So what's it actually like? Is it difficult?
Yeah, definitely difficult. Probably more emotional than anything else. But I suppose I know a lot of the players, I know the manager, and they know I have the job to do. And it's very simple. When you enlist, you must soldier. And I gave everything I could for Shinrone for that day. There's no hard feelings at anybody. I hurled with 4 or 5 of them. I won medals with 4 or 5 of them. That's on the team. And I would have coached about 4 or 5 of them to win minor and 16 titles as well with KK. So they know how passionate I am about hurling, and they knew I would give Shinrone all my best.
You must have, after the semi-final win, Trevor, I mean, I know is the Blue Ball pub there down in Killahey? Like, you're probably in there, and there's lads from the Killahey team ahead of the final who you'll be coming up against. So is it an awkward conversation? Are they wishing you luck?
Yeah, it was fun. Actually, after, obviously, we won on the Saturday. We won the semi-final on the Saturday, so I obviously went in and watched the other semi-final with KK and Burr on the Sunday, and obviously stopped on the way home from the match in the Blue Ball, and some of the players came in, and obviously I would be a lot friendlier with some of the senior players, the likes of Ger Shane, the full forward, and he said to me, "We'll talk to you today, Fletch, but we won't talk to you for the next 2 weeks." And that was just a bit of banter that was there. But I also knew it was my time to leave as well, because they probably wanted to analyse the semi-final, and they're going up against me. So I had 2 or 3 points with the boys. I knew it was time to leave as well, because they wanted their time too.
Things are just getting interesting at that stage. 2 or 3 points. The 4th point, you're like, "Here, listen, you're a full back." No, I've had my eye on him the whole time. I'm going to absolutely, just need to be careful about that. Did it help in the end that you had a big enough victory that actually, it wasn't as on a knife edge maybe as some of these county finals have been in recent years?
Oh, absolutely. For a personal reason, I couldn't have worked out a better way, to be quite honest with you. There's no big controversy, there's no decisions, or no, it's all ref this, or it was a wide, or it was I couldn't have worked out a better way for me, to be honest.
In the house, then, what colours are being worn? You're obviously in the red and white, but is it yellow and green in the house, or are they for one day only supporting you?
No, very much so. Green and yellow. It was funny getting to the car. I had my Shinrone top on, and the wife Gemma had her KK, and the 2 boys, Oren and Lachlan, they were KK. And the little fella Lachlan said to me, he's 12. He just said to me, "She's that. I'm not shouting for you today," which is, I totally understand. I suppose his point of view was he's never seen Kilcormac, or can't remember Kilcormac winning a county final, so he wanted Kilcormac to win for memories for himself.
What does it mean to a club like Shinrone? Because as far as I know, they've been in the final before, but they've never won it. Is that correct?
Yeah, the last final in the room was 1960, so that was 62 years ago. Look, it's huge. It's huge. To put into words straight away, I probably can't what it means to them, and they probably won't realise it for another few months. Don't get me wrong, there was fantastic celebrations, the homecoming. The players loved it. I know the kids loved it, and just a reflection with a few of the players' fathers. This is what it means to them. I won't name names, but one of the fathers was milking the cows at 6:30 or 7 on the Monday morning. He started crying that we just have to win in a county final yesterday. So it means everything to them.
Sorry, just going to say on that, like Kilcormac Killahey, a lot of people's favourites heading into the final as well. Trevor, were you expected to put up a fight? Was it kind of a case of David versus Goliath heading into the match, or was it more evenly poised?
Well, there were favourites going in, and rightly so. They had won their 5 out of 5 games coming through the championship semi-final, or their 4 group games, and they won the semi-final. So there would have been favourites going in, but I knew going in, if we could be thereabouts at half time with them, that we'd have a shout, and that's how it transpired. We kicked on in the second half. We got, I think it was 6 points in a row in the second half, and that kind of gave us a great platform to bring it home.
I'm interested in your perspective about the general standard at the moment, because we are all desperate for Offaly to get back to the top tier and to bring us back to the heyday when they were competing for All Ireland. When they were doing that, there was like the core of the team were part of one of the great club teams that there ever has been, that crop who came from Burr. But if they're going to make it back to the top table, you need Kilcormac, you need Shinrone to be producing 2 or 3 players who are of inter-county standard, and then inspiring the generation after that to come through and to stick with the game and to train at the level that you need to train at. Like, I do wonder, as somebody who has a little bit of perspective from what things were like in Tipperary growing up, you were part of the same underage teams as Owen Kelly, so you've seen the absolute elite of the game and what they do and how they prepare and the skills work that they do in training. What's your take on where the game is at the moment in Offaly and the gap that they still have to make up to get back to that top tier?
Yeah, look, they're making good headway, I think. I actually listened to Johnny Pilkington earlier in the podcast, and Johnny B. My Milkman is a great character, and I think he hit the nail on the head with the facilities in Faithful Fields is fantastic, and I think we're going to get the fruition of that going forward, because they're now training at a top class centre. They're seeing the seniors training before them, and I think they are going in the right direction. I'll be quite honest with you. They're into Joe McDonough. They just have to, I suppose, for the next Johnny. I know Johnny Kelly, and Johnny Kelly will put his heart and soul into it. Martin Maher coming on board, so they're getting top class coaches. And I do agree with you in the sense that you need 2 or 3 very good hurlers from each club to drive it on, and I think it's there in Kilcormac, it's in St. Ryan's, Shinrone, Burr. So I think there is. I think they have a very good chance in the next 3 to 4 years of getting out of Joe McDonough.
Like turning even minor success in Offaly into senior level success, it's never a given, Trevor. Like that minor level success is going to turn into something positive at senior level. But I remember yourself on that Tip minor team with Owen Kelly, and you were a bit of a prodigy coming through in that team. But Tip certainly did transfer that from minor success into senior. Like, are you confident that Offaly can do the same now after last year's minor victories?
Well, knowing the minor team quite well, a lot of the players are six starters from Kilcormac. I suppose you look at the kids, you look at their background, their family background, and even you look at the whole minor 15 team that started. Normally, you're lucky to get 2 or 3 hurlers that will transition into senior level. But looking at that Offaly minor team, I could definitely see 5 or 6 lads in the next few years coming onto the Offaly team, which will be a huge boost to Offaly.
I did want to ask you about that breakthrough team from Kilcormac who kind of put the club on the map, that reached the club final that you were part of. Because you have that experience, when you're talking to your team now, is there any of that you can lean back on and go, look, it's brilliant, right? The story you tell about the man milking the cows crying, like, I think that really brings home to everybody listening just exactly how much of a breakthrough moment it is. It'd be natural for them to relax and go, nothing else matters now, we've done our bit. But you've been part of a team that dreamed a little bit bigger after making a breakthrough. Are those conversations started? Is it even fair for me to ask you? Like, I mean, you've done everything that you could have possibly dreamed of, but at the same time, there's still another competition you're in.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, 2012, I spoke about it before I went and did interviews for the county final with the wife, with Gemma, and it was probably from we won the county final, going to the All Ireland club final, probably the 6 best months of our lives as a club, as a family. And albeit we're starting to have a conversation when the boys had a week off, we're back training there last Tuesday night. We're taking it one step at a time, but I am kind of remembering what happened with us. It's now winter hurling. It's not going to be as nice as it was during the summer. So the boys, I'm leaning back on my own memories of how we prepared and what the pitches are going to be like, what the weather is going to be like. So I'm giving them every little bit of information that I can recall myself. You can't think too far ahead. Every team that's still left in the championship always have dreams and believes of playing the biggest day for a club is the All-Ireland Club Final. But look, we have Naas next. They're a really, really good team. They're All-Ireland Intermediate champions, and you don't win any All-Ireland title for nothing.
That Club All-Ireland appearance with yourself when you were playing, Trevor, really interested to listen to James O'Donoghue on the football pod during the week, where he was talking about losing a county final and a missed a missed chance at one stage in the match that he still thinks about to this day, and if it pops into his head, it's there for an hour. And I don't want to focus on the negative, because back then you were county champions, you were Leinster champions, you went on after that to win a few county titles in a row. But that All-Ireland club final defeat to St Thomas's, and granted you had a good game yourself that day, but are there elements of games like that stick in your head? You think, geez, we were very close to an All-Ireland club medal.
Yeah, absolutely. And people do ask you about how did it feel, and for me it was probably, unfortunately, as a team, it was our probably worst performance that year. On the biggest day. Look, we had a few decisions that went against us, and there's not much you can do about that. But as regrets, no, there's no regrets. But yeah, you would say that it was just unfortunate that we didn't perform overly great on the biggest day.
I remember hearing the great Brian Mullins always held some element of grudge for the 83 final, wasn't it, with the couple of red cards, and it's something you can hold on, like a couple of harsh red cards in that game as well. Trevor, are you still holding on to those? Will you carry them with you for the rest of your days?
Look, listen, I can't do anything about it anymore. I'm a firm believer in you can control what you control, but there's not much I can do about that. We couldn't do much about it on the day, only try and do the best we could. What happened, the referees are going to make decisions. Look, we all know refereeing at the minute is very, very tough, and at the end of the day, there'll be no matches without referees. So look, it's not a grudge, to be quite honest with you, but it's just, it was unfortunate that it happened to us on the biggest day.
One last thing, the Republic of Ireland women's national team obviously going to the World Cup next year. Your daughter's on a football scholarship, a soccer scholarship in America. How did that all come about?
Yeah, look, she's a talented little woman. She plays a lot of camogie as well and soccer, and she joined Peamount under 17 League of Ireland team, and I suppose she was I think it was 5th year she was in, and we started asking her questions, what do you want to do, where do you want to go college wise, and this came up, and we signed up with Stephen Murray Agency, and he got us then in contact with colleges in America, and she's now over in Monroe College in New Rochelle in New York. So, and that's where she was born. Actually, I believe she was born only 20 minutes away in Woodlawn. So yeah, she's over there now. She's having a great time. College has started. Soccer's going quite well. It looks like they're going to make the playoffs as well. So that's starting now. The playoffs are going to be the 4th of May.
It's an incredible opportunity, isn't it? Because that was one of the things that in a previous generation, like 2 generations ago, there was kind of a little bit of a sense of, we're training these kids to play, and then they're going off to America. And I'm like, that's the best thing that could possibly happen. They'll go off, behave like professionals, get a great education, and then come back when they're ready if they want to.
Well, this is it. Look, I spoke to Kayla outside of being on a scholarship or being a college in America. She's living in New York at 18 years of age. The experience she's going to gain for the rest of her life is going to be phenomenal.
Do you still have family and friends over there? So it's a bit of a homecoming for her in some ways.
Yeah. A lot of my, I don't have any family, but Gemma has family there. But a lot of our very good friends is there. My best friend is there, Mickey Maher and Dave Lucknan and Mike DeVivo, Stephen Carter. She chats with them nearly every day, and Gemma has relations there, and there's so many, like when you go to America, your friends become your family, so we really have a great contact there.
And when you see the match the other night, I guess and I'm not saying she's going to make the World Cup squad or anything like that, but you can see why being part of a movement that is growing as fast as the women's national team is at the moment, that the opportunities are going to be there for her to have an elite career if she wants it.
Yeah, look, I think women's soccer in general over the world is probably one of the biggest growing sports, and it's great that she's involved, and there's going to be, she knows herself, there's going to be opportunities there, so when they come, please God, she just has to put her hand up.
Trevor, we wish you the very best of luck against Naas. Congratulations, it's an incredible story. Thanks a million for joining us.
No problem, thanks lads.
It's Trevor Fletcher there, the manager of the Shinrone hurlers, who won their first county championship in Offaly. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. If you want to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Time for the sports pages.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not having that, no.
At 8:34, the women's national team obviously dominating the front and back pages. We've already done this one, but ooh ah up fear ah. This is the Wolf Tones' Brian Warfield saying, "Yeah, fear pout, go for it," and let them sing. Goal firm, fastest hat trick in Champions League history for Mo Salah as Poole hit Rangers for 7. Is he back? Is that all he needed?
It's funny, he didn't.
Dam has burst.
Yeah, he didn't really celebrate for the first goal. The lads touched on it last night, Joe and Kenny on the show. He kind of just stood there, but then he was full on going for it. I mean, a hat-trick in 6 minutes is, by any account, astonishing. But in the Champions League to do it is just... And Roberto Firmino as well. I mean, what a season he's having.
Yeah, he's been really good.
I think he scored... Was it 11 goals last season, 9 the year before, and he's already on 8 this season, so well on target to smash those records for the last couple of years.
Amber's my golden girl. This is Amber Barrett's dad. Said he's bursting with pride after her goal made history and sent Ireland to the World Cup. And also Brian Warfield quoted there as well. Fly Mo. Did you get that?
Fly Mo. Is this going to be an age reference?
No. Do you know what a Fly Mo is?
Fly Mo, no, I don't think so.
All right, wow. It's a lawnmower.
Am I alone here?
A lawnmower.
I'm getting shaking heads from the box. What is it? A lawnmower?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Never heard the Flymos? The lawnmowers?
I just called it a lawnmower, Ger.
Well, no, there's a particular brand.
Right, okay, yeah, of course.
We could be World Cup knockouts. That's Vera Pauw. £9 billion. Incredible bid Glazers would take to sell Reds. Glazers want €10 billion. Yeah, see, it's the maybe because the pound is so weak at the moment.
Yeah,
maybe it's really about 8 months ago.
It's
before the Tories crashed their economy.
Yeah, a bit mad. Twice the market value apparently, according to the papers this morning. And Jim Ratcliffe, I think those were the quotes for the price that the Glazers want are coming out of. Like they're setting the price so high that the club can't be bought at that level. Even Ratcliffe has a net worth of 10.2 billion. So yeah, it's an interesting move by the Glazers for sure.
No excuse for Revel. Chanson says, Pauw, we're so sorry. This is the Mail. This is the Irish Daily Mail, leading with that at the back there today. And 6s and 7s, Spurs beat Frankfurt 3-2 obviously last night. United battle to avoid Ronaldo tantrum ban. Remember that? He slapped a camera, was that what it was? He slapped a child, he slapped a phone out of it. Teenage.
Yeah, on the way walking off the pitch, he slapped the phone out of a kid's hand. But
he's trying to plead out of that. Back page of the Herald. Sky deal with the FAI is safe. Irish team apologised for singing pro-IRA song with manager Pauw saying nobody meant anything with it. And mitigating factors to be Ronaldo's defence. The mitigating factors being, I'm Cristiano Ronaldo. Who does this child think he is? Is that it? I mean, why should I have to? I don't know. The Devontae Adams, one of the great wide receivers in American football, pushed a cameraman over after the game the other night when his team had been beaten by a point, and he's been charged immediately with misdemeanor assault in Kansas. Now, it's misdemeanor. I suspect you plead out of that. And I don't know. Do you do community service or do you pay money or I don't know? Whatever happens, you pay the man some money and the charges miraculously get dropped. Maybe that's how that works. But
it was actually a confusing one yesterday because Eric Ten Hag in his press conference was asked about it yesterday and he said Cristiano will not accept it, as in the charge, and then the United PR team came out afterwards and says he actually meant he will accept it.
Oh. So
there was a kind of a language barrier.
Was there?
So I don't know what
was there a change of plans?
Maybe there was a change of plans, but yeah, it seems to be a bit up in the air at the minute. Obviously United don't want Ronaldo to be suspended at the minute, especially after last week when he scored a goal, his 700th club career goal. So, and it's a big game tonight. I should mention, Ger, as well, that, and I hadn't realised this, if you finish top of your Europa League group, you advance to the last 16 for next February, but if you finish second, you have to play a knockout game in November. So United will be hoping to avoid that. Real Sociedad, obviously the
pace. They don't want a few extra games to get all those, to give Casemiro a bit more game time.
Not this year, I don't think, with the World Cup. There's already enough games. Wasps
doomed to relegation. This is the Telegraph. Wasps are likely to be relegated from the Premiership after announcing they could go into administration in the coming days. So this is the Telegraph, right? And remember we went through the paper yesterday for the report on the Ireland game, and it was like nothing, and then Mo Salah, PSG are denying the attempt to smear Mbappe through social media, and then there's a picture of the Ireland women's soccer team celebrating, and that's all it is, just a picture of the team celebrating. There's nothing else in the Telegraph about it, no other reference to anything else.
Just ignored. Yeah.
Hopefully we've inspired enough young girls to keep at it. This is Anya O'Gorman speaking in the Irish Times. Pauw shirks nothing as she leads her side into a whole new world, and can the FAI make hay while the sun shines? So the prize money is going to be something like 1.2 million. Yeah, FIFA are yet to confirm, but it's around 1.2 million in prize money per nation. And then I think you get extra depending on how well or how far you go into the competition, which obviously isn't huge. And you would expect the players will be getting a large portion of it.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
And well deserved.
Exactly, yeah.
And just on Vera Pauw, how impressive has she been generally? Like a lot of people who weren't familiar with her, obviously us in the sporting sphere, we've been aware of her for some time, but people are sitting up and taking notice because she's a leader. In more ways than one. The Irish Sports Personality of the Year potentially. There is competition.
I'm trying to remember what's happened this year.
Yeah.
So it's going to be somebody from Kerry in the running for that.
Yes, yeah.
Clifford, but the personality you're saying it's the manager's award, is it?
No, well,
Vera
generally
is
speaking,
manager of the year, I think, right?
She's manager of the year. She has to be. But yeah, it's what she's done for football in this country can't be underestimated. And hard to believe it's her first World Cup as a manager next summer. So yeah, she's as excited as the players, understandably.
The Examiner headline makers: what's next for Ireland after Hampden Joy and regret? I mean, I don't know. We're going to forget about that regret pretty quickly. We're going to the World Cup.
I like to think in reeling in the years it'll just show the Amber Barrett goal, set the music, and there won't be any.
No, that's so. Of course, it depends on who's in government at the time. Of course,
yeah.
Are we allowed to say stuff like that? We're not. Irish Independent front page is a picture of Amber Barrett and her as a kid. It doesn't say what age she is there, but her with the Donegal flag. And then Sky say deal with Irish team won't be axed. Tyrrell urges Fennelly to reconsider Kilkenny retirement. Derek Ling needs to sit down with Colin Fennelly and see if the two-time All-Star can be coaxed out of retirement, according to Jackie Tyrrell. I would say that's a possibility. Colin's gone away for the summer and looks a little bit reinvigorated and refreshed. He was very good last weekend against Tyrone, and he went to centre forward at one stage. Now the game is opened up. The game had opened up, but he got a ball and took off down the wing. I thought he might have lost a bit of pace, but by God, he hasn't lost any of his pace.
Well, the new condensed season potentially plays into the hands of players who might want to come back for a little shortened inter-county season, get it over and done with, and get your games in a short space of time. So yeah, there's probably going to be loads of that where you see players retiring, coming out of retirement, one last Michael Jordan last dance. That'll be great to see him back, but depends what else he's got going on in his life, because inter-county commitment is fairly substantial, especially when you're still playing club as well. So
yeah,
a lot of competition in that Kilkenny team though. Someone has to come for Limerick.
Well, no harm having somebody like that on the bench if that's what it is, or no harm having him do 40 minutes softening somebody up.
Yeah.
And taking a lot of hits and then moving on, you know?
Well, it's the experience in the dressing room, isn't it? Like, you can't, I know it's a cliche, but you cannot buy that type of experience in the dressing room. Someone who's a leader, been there, done that, and you've got the young lads coming through constantly every year, as Kilkenny inevitably do. So yeah, having someone like that in the dressing room is a big plus for Kilkenny if he does consider what Jackie Tyrrell is suggesting.
Headline from a piece we just taken, I think, from the London Independent: Sancho stuck in reverse after failing to hit mark for United.
Sancho's a bust, is that what you're saying, Ger?
I mean, far be it from me to say that, but yes. It was around this time last year that the very first questions began to be asked about Jadon Sancho. You know, in politics there used to be that old kind of, if the scandal is still a scandal, you know, day one, you're okay, you write it out. Day two, day three, it's like, you're gone. But a year later, still asking questions about a footballer, that would suggest that, you know...
Nah.
But I thought he fixed it with the goals. He scored that great shimmy of the hips. It was a very, very good goal.
Yeah.
A very good finish against Liverpool.
Yeah, remarkable goal. And no, I wouldn't be concerned. I think there was an element of headlines
you
like
wouldn't
that.
be concerned?
There was an element of headlines like that for Firmino a few weeks at the start of the season. Everyone was like, oh, out of contract at the end of the season, it's in big trouble.
Cost?
I know, but
Firmino wasn't like the Messiah riding over the hill.
Money's irrelevant in football anyway, but like...
Okay, well, he is the Messiah who's supposed to fix the team, and
Sancho.
then it turned out... Sancho and Varane, yes, new team, we're totally different. Oh, look, he's been affected by... The Dutch elm disease, is footballer's equivalent of it, where it's like something happens to you and you just can't.
He started to add goals to his.
Has he started? Has he?
He started slowly, but he started.
3 goals this season.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look,
2 goals this season.
He's not the finished article by any stretch. But the good thing for United is that the likes of Rashford,
heaven
and Martial,
forbid you'd spend 80 million on the finished article.
Yeah, like Harry Maguire. Like the signs have been good because Rashford and Martial have been almost stepping up when Sancho's form has dipped, and vice versa. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of games, a lot of game time for Jadon Sancho. I don't think he's still only
22, and I'm not saying that he can't fix it, but it's getting further and further from being fixed, isn't it?
I don't see it that way.
I think it's getting better.
No, I think he's going to come good, and I actually think he could still have a good season and
3 goals, 1 against Sheriff, 1 against Leicester, and 1 against Liverpool.
Yeah, probably not the return he would have liked.
Not getting in the team at the moment.
No,
he'll probably play tonight because it's Ammonia Nicosia at home.
Well, because we've talked about him, he'll probably score a couple of goals tonight.
Well, that's what your hope is.
But yeah, it's one of those things. He's such a talent that you almost don't feel too concerned about. Like, because when you saw Sancho and Bellingham at Dortmund, you were thinking these guys are on the same level. Bellingham's taking it to the next level. We're still waiting for Sancho to do that. But I would expect he will do it once his confidence gets up a little bit. And Ten Hag clearly has faith in him. So yeah, he just needs a couple of goals, a couple of good performances, and maybe his level will be resumed. Newcastle this weekend is going to be a big one as well for United at home.
Yeah, it's going pear-shaped. It is going pear-shaped.
For Sancho,
you want something a bit more than this, right?
Yeah, but patience. It's gonna happen. He didn't play the last day. Rested.
No, he got dropped. He got hooked at half-time against Ammonia away. Criticised for lack of movement. Dropped for the next game.
Yeah,
performances improved.
And look, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You can have a period of time where you go out of form. We talked about Ousmane Dembele earlier for Barcelona. He had a kid recently. We talked about the kid bounce. Sometimes maybe it can go the other way.
That's in snooker. That's not football, is it?
The kid bounce.
Yeah.
And golf. A lot of golfers do well when they have kids. But no, I don't know. Jadon Sancho, I think, has the talent.
Can I just there's a brilliant I should have led with this. Mark Critchley has dug this out. The lack of a consistent goal threat has not been compensated by consistent creativity either. Sancho's 0.08 expected assists per 90 minutes in all competitions is lower than that of Fred, Dalot and even Ronaldo.
Expected assists. Pass me a bucket.
But like, come on. Are you saying it's not real?
No, but expected goals I can nearly get behind. And
okay, but he's less creative. Do you accept that it's a real thing and that he has been less creative than Fred, Dalot and Ronaldo?
Yeah, but there were a couple of games
who doesn't pass and never plays.
Yeah, I get the point, but I mean, there's been games earlier in the season where Sancho looked like United's best player on the pitch for a few games. Maybe the level of players around him wasn't.
Were there not a few minutes in a game where he looked good?
I think he had a few good performances for United this season. Like,
do you remember Didi Hamann lecturing the world on RTE? Why aren't they picking Sancho? We think he's brilliant. Everybody says he's brilliant. And then they bought him, and it turns out he shouldn't be anywhere near the England team.
I almost think Sancho. I understand why he shouldn't be near the England team. And look, if you're not playing regular football, that's understandable. But I think the Sancho conversation is going to come back to us in about a year or two's time, where we're like, okay, this is Jadon Sancho.
Okay, you keep praying to the God of Jadon Sancho. The 22-year-old has never been a prolific shooter, but 3 goals in all competitions have come from just 7 shots. Staggeringly, Sancho's average of 0.74 shots per 90 minutes is among the bottom 1% of Premier League players in his position this season.
Yeah.
If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win the lottery, Shane.
True. Yeah, he has to start creating more, but I don't know. I think Ten Hag is the perfect manager for him. He seems to be a confidence breeder, and that's something he's been shorn of. Like Marcus Rashford and Martial were 2 players completely devoid of confidence. All of a sudden now they're 2 of United's best players, certainly in an attacking sense. So yeah, again.
Who are you comparing them with? Who's and also they're not really like the new kid who scored 3 goals in 3 games by taking shots from outside the box. He looks good.
Yeah,
still, he was compared to Nani at the weekend on Monday's show when we were talking with Andy about it, Andy Mitten. So I don't know. I'm just not sure about where your optimism is coming from here, Shane.
It's going to come good. It's going to come good. Well, we all know the football fans are eternally optimistic for no reason. So I'm going to hold on to that. Liverpool fans held on to optimism about Firmino, and it's come good.
Yeah, but he was like their 4th best attacking player, and it was Jota or Firmino. It wasn't, and they had Mo Salah in the team.
Yeah, but it was
Sadio
all
Mane.
It was all Salah's number 1 man. Mane's gone. Darwin Núñez has been brought in. Firmino's gone. His contract is up at the end of the season. He is disappeared, and now all of us, it's just like signing the dotted line. The contract is coming.
Classic whataboutery there from the Manchester United fan. 8:49 OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish your day. Now, I'm delighted to say we're joined in the line by Ronan O'Kelly, organiser of the Irish Parkinson's golf team for the annual Sport Parkinson's 4 Nations golf tournament, which took place this week at the world famous Belfry Golf Club in England, and Ireland only went and won it, beating England, Wales and Scotland for the trophy. Ronan, good morning to you. How are you?
Tired and emotional, but it's been great. Very good form.
That's class. Was it close or did you wallop them?
I'd like to say it was close to be nice about it, but we had 5 out of 5, whitewash on the first day, which is the forces and match play. And after that, we were kind of coasting, really, And then a couple of lads came through yesterday. There was 10 teams out yesterday from each nation, and 3 of our teams came in the top 7, I think it was. So I mean, we had it nailed really in the end. But it was all right. Good play, and we seem to do a good job of it. All right.
Ireland being good at golf is probably not that much of a surprise. Tell me a little bit about how this tournament started. When did you get involved in it?
Well, the tournament was started by a guy here in England called Charlie Appleyard, who runs a group called Sports Parkinson's. They do not just golf, but they do walking football, 5-a-side, triathlons, all that stuff for people who have Parkinson's disease. And he contacted somebody in Ireland there, one of the lads in Ireland there, about a year or two ago, and there was a team sent over 9 people last year, and those guys initiated the whole connection and made it the 4 nations. And this year we decided to go we decided to go again, but it's all part of a group called the Irish Parkinson's Golf Network, which was set up after this competition last year by those guys, those initial guys, to have a network around Ireland for people who have Parkinson's and want to play a bit of golf together, bring their partners down, have days out, talk to each other, have social meetings. And if you're in Donegal and the guys in Derry, you can play a game of golf together. It's just a network really for everybody who wants to play golf that has Parkinson's.
What was it like to play the Belfry, Ronan? A fairly famous course. It must have been quite exciting to go around those holes.
Yeah. I'm a new convert. I've been playing 3 or 4 years, but the guys in particular who played golf all their lives and were really spellbound by the place. It's a beautiful course. It's fantastic. Very testing in places, iconic, obviously, and it's a real privilege to play. Really, particularly if you're wearing the national colours, that's amazing,
Yeah, I'd say that only adds to the whole thing. It does sound like you were kind of, not fully appreciative. Did you say you really only took up golf in the last 3 or 4 years?
Yeah. A friend of mine asked me. I was telling him that I was getting bored of walking. I have to do quite a lot because I have the Parkinson's disease, and I have to keep going, keep moving, keep active. And the walking was kind of boring me. And he suggested that I join his club, Carrick Mines. So thanks to him, guy called Oliver Fleming, thanks to him, I'm playing golf and really loving it. And during COVID, it was especially fantastic for me, But a lot of these guys have been playing a long time, and Parkinson's is very debilitating. So you can go from being a scratch golfer or a low handicap golfer to being, not very good compared to that in the space of a couple of years, and it's very despondent, makes them very despondent sometimes. And you just want to make sure that people who play golf continue to play it and continue to stay active and not get despondent, And this kind of thing makes it great because you just enjoy it. It's fantastic.
You managed to get over the initial frustration phase of taking up golf, Ronan. Obviously, I mean, was it an immediate okay, I'm good at this, or was it I hate this for a while, and then you eventually got to love the sport?
Look, it's golf, and I've been informed by many over the years that it doesn't change much, and the way I play, that won't change much either. So it's not really about. It's just about getting out there, staying active, and have a bit of a laugh,
You talked about having to stay active. I think one of the misconceptions that the organisation that you're a part of is trying to overcome is the fact that you can't do stuff. It's actually the opposite, that you're supposed to do stuff. You're supposed to be as active as you possibly can, and any kind of initiative to get people out more often, particularly as you've talked about, that has the dual benefit. One is the physical activity, and then the other side of that is the social activity.
Yeah, well, it's brain and body, and physical activities has been proven to really work to counter against some of the symptoms and some of the outcomes of what Parkinson's brings you. It's really important to stay active as you can. Obviously, mentally, it's a huge thing as well, because it's a very big moment in your life when somebody gives you a diagnosis. Then you're obviously going to be concerned about it. You can go one way or the other, and it's very important to remember that it's not a death sentence. It's just something that you'll carry with you for the rest of your life, and it doesn't have to be as bad as it may be perceived or made out to be in general folklore. The bottom line is you just stay as active as you can. But you're right, there's a counterbalance. your body's saying no, but you've got to say yeah. And it's just about trying to beat that as much as you can. That kind of bodily function saying to you, look, I don't want to do this now. You kind of have to kind of push it a little bit and say, look, I want to be okay tomorrow, so I need to do this today.
Are there many supports for people out there? Like, was that something that you kind of, obviously you're unaware of it until you need access to something like this, but that support group where somebody is going to help you to say, come on, up you go, let's get out?
Well, the Parkinson's Association of Ireland is a very good concern. They're very active and they're very helpful in this. I mean, this Parkinson's situation is something that needs support. I mean, I have a support system around me, wife, family, friends who are fantastic and amazing. Not everybody will have that. I was quite young. I was 47 when I was diagnosed. I'm 55 now. There are people who get diagnosed in their 70s and they may not have that support system around them as much as I do. So yeah, of course, you need to have that support. There are sports groups. Parkinson's Association of Ireland are very, very good. Local community groups exist. That's why our thing is a network. It's not a golf club or a golf group society. It's a network. It's about talking to people. It's about hooking up with guys and girls from around the country and playing games and playing our particular game is golf. There's lots of other sports. There's walking football. There's triathlon. There's dancing. There's singing. There's everything. It's not just about the golf. It's about do whatever you can just to keep going.
That's an interesting point you made, Ronan, about the death sentence misconception, and that's a fascinating one because for a lot of people that stigma is there, that people think, okay, once you get Parkinson's, the rest is downhill. But it's important for things like this to raise awareness of that and I guess show people that that's not the true reality.
I had that. I went through 6 months of torture, really, and I got therapy and stuff, and my family were very supportive. But I don't remember, but my wife would tell me that I was quite hit by it and hit hard by it for the first 6 months. But I came through it. I got out at the other end and said, look, another day is another day. And here we are, like 7 or 8 years later, and playing the Belfry for Ireland. So, every cloud and all that. But look, it's not easy. It's not easy to get that diagnosis. And but the reality of the situation is, it's not going to. It's not something that's going to turn you over in two weeks' time. You can keep going, and with countermeasures such as exercise and other medical and other treatments and other supports. It's fine. You can live a pretty active life. I'm still very, very active and still enjoying it and still laughing away. And if anything, I have a better perspective on life than I had before.
Was there a turning point in that journey along the way, Ronan, where you actually did get to grips with this?
It was a kind of a period of time, yeah. There was a period of time. There was when as I said, I went through 2 sessions of therapy, hypnotherapy and psychotherapy, and that was very, very helpful. It obviously switched around. I have no idea how it happened. I have no idea what happened, but I do know it helped. So within about a 6-month period, and just the persistence and support of my wife and family and friends was vitally important to that. So there was a time when I just turned a bit, I said, screw it, let's do this, and let's just make the best of it. So, I kind of quit work for a year. I said, that's it, I'm done. I'm not going to work for a year. I'm going to just do nothing. And I'm just going to get my act together. And over that period of time, it just got better and better and better for me. And then, but there's little things that happen. There's a newspaper article by Amy Hooverman about her dad back in 2015, just after 6 months after I was diagnosed. I remember sitting in a tyre replacement place out in Ballyfermot somewhere, waiting for my tires to be done, reading that article. I was just going like, you know what, shag this. I'm just going to do this. So little tiny things like that, but mostly my wife and my family and everybody else just being persistent and saying, look, come on, you can do this, we can get it on. But that's why the support system is so important. And for instance, in our thing, the golf thing, the partners are a huge part of it. Everybody has partners and helpers and carers. They come along to the show. Everybody here has partners and helpers, and everybody here has another person with them, at least one other person to help them along. Like it's a hard journey without them, and it's very important that they're here.
Yeah, and to get the reward to go somewhere nice and hang out in the Belfry is great. You were raising funds for it. I know there was a GoFundMe as well for anybody who wants to get behind and support.
Yeah, I mean, I left it open for today and tomorrow and until Friday. I think it's GoFundMe. If you just look up, I think it's Irish Parkinson's golf team. My name, Ronan O'Kelly, and you'll find it on GoFundMe. It'd be great to get a few more quid. all that money is going to Parkinson's Association of Ireland for them to do their work. And we all paid our own way here. We did our own thing, and the fundraising is to go to Parkinson's Association of Ireland. We'd like to raise, another few quid. I think we're up to about 16, 17 grand. We'd love to get up to about 20 grand or something like that. Would be nice, but it's not vitally important. The most important thing is to get the message out there to people who have Parkinson's to stay active. And anybody who's interested in golf and Parkinson's, just go to Twitter, Golf Parkies on Twitter, and go to the Irish Parkinson's Golf Network, Irish Parkinson's Golf Network at gmail.com, I think it is. But Irish Parkinson's Golf Network, or Parkies Golf on Twitter.
Okay, so they should definitely be able to find it. Ronan, congratulations. Does that mean now that you're the champions, there with a trophy, obviously, we see you there, we've got a picture, it's a nice little claret jug.
Yeah, well, a Guinness jug, yeah.
Very good. And you guys, are you the host next year automatically, or how does that work?
No, there's a talk about it. The other groups are all talking about it. They'd love to come over to Ireland. Essentially, it's been held here for 2 years. The organisation Sports Parkinson's control that.
Right.
We'd all love to have people over here. We'd love to host them over here, but it's up to them. They do a great job over here, so it's no problem. But we definitely want to host it or something similar to it very soon, and we'd like to have something in Ireland very, very soon for this thing. It's great crack. It actually makes it's good spectacle as well. It's a bit of crack,
Ronan, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us, and best of luck with everything. Cheers.
Cheers, Shane. Cheers, Ger. Thanks.
It's Ronan O'Kelly there, a member of the successful Irish Golf Parkinson's team, who were dominant, it seems like, from start to finish.
I love it. Complete dominance, and he's semi-modest. You shouldn't be modest. I mean, you absolutely thrashed the opposition at the Belfry. That's one to tell the grandkids about. That's incredible.
It's 9:01 this morning. If you want to get in touch with us, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Live each morning with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio for you for the rest of the day. Ray Boom Boom Mancini at 1 o'clock. Leaders' questions with Stuart Lancaster at 3. Our retro panel is GAA meets basketball. If memory serves correctly, it's Donaghy, J.O. and Liam McHale, I want to say. And if it is the panel I'm thinking of, it's one of the best things that I've ever been in the room watching. Because that's basically all you had to do with the three lads. And then after that, it's Jerry Eisenberg talking about Muhammad Ali. And then the show is live tonight. Nathan is in this seat. It's a bumper show with match-winning hero Amber Barrett on the line, Brian O'Driscoll and John Giles also lining up. Tune in from 7 o'clock. Now make sure that you download the OTB app in your app store and subscribe to all our podcast feeds. It's the best and quickest way to get access to all of our audio content. We're back after this break with John O'Keeffe and Jimmy Maher in studio. They're Clonulty Rossmore teammates of Dillon Quirke, who obviously suddenly passed away at the age of 24 after being taken ill during a game in August. Before that, Kenny Cunningham was on the show last night revealing how his breath was taken away by Amber Barrett's post-match interview at Hampden on Tuesday. Enjoy.
That post-match interview which he did, I've got to be honest with you, absolutely blew me away.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
Yeah. I was trying not to cry on the bus at home last night watching.
For somebody who kind of spoke, you could have given me 6 hours prep before an interview like that, sure. And I couldn't have been able to put that across as well as she did. To be as spontaneous as that and kind of as heartfelt as it was, and spoke so, and just the tone was like pitch perfect, wasn't it? In terms of explaining how delighted she was, in terms of the moment, what they'd achieved as a team, but also kind of marrying that up with kind of sadness, not really sadness, because kind of devastation yeah. Really at what had happened a few days previously. I just thought it was almost like it was a beautiful moment,
really beautiful. We've spoken to Amber a few times in the show. She's playing her football in Germany, and anytime she speaks, she's very interesting, super intelligent. But I mean, that was just another level of composure and, as you said, eloquence under that kind of pressure.
Yeah.
Because when you're talking about something, we would find here even you're talking about something that tragic and that devastating. You don't want to say the wrong thing.
Exactly.
You don't want to use the wrong word.
Out of context. Exactly. Yeah. You wonderful. Cause a bit of hurt to people. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I think the whole country at that interview went, my God. Wow. Of anything we've heard in the last week, not to do a disservice to anyone last week, that's right up there,
Yeah. Well, this is what makes you kind of, you talk about pride in the jersey and the football, but for me it's just as much people. Pride in your own, when you talk about pride in your own people, this thing, I love being, the t-shirts, we're lucky being Irish and all. It's all a bit of a laugh and a joke and this type of thing, you know what I mean? But for me, that's what it is. Kind of, I think there is a truth there at the bottom of it in terms of that bit of pride in ourselves and kind of what we stand for. And I think she kind of epitomised it the other night in terms of how she spoke. I think that was the very in that whatever couple of minutes that she spoke, that was the very best really of what we've got in this country. I think that's what we're talking about in terms of when we talk in those terms.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Barrett for Ireland into the area, toe pocket, goal! What a moment!
We're going to a World Cup. It's what dreams are made of. I hope someone's got the champagne on.
You know, I did believe we could do it.
After the game, I said, I didn't know what I've just done. I don't know what we've just done.
History is made by the Republic of Ireland. They are going to the World Cup Finals.
For all the best reaction to the girls in green qualifying for the World Cup, subscribe to the OTB Football podcast stream now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right, John O'Keeffe and Jimmy Maher are with us in studio this morning. Lads, you're both very welcome and thanks very much for coming to join us. This isn't going to be an easy conversation, but you guys were teammates of Dillon Quirke, who passed away this year at the age of 24 after being taken ill during a game. And we felt maybe now that the dust has settled on the season, it might be time to have a chat about it and kind of see what the experience was like, and maybe just to try and do some service to the memory of Dillon Quirke. John, I might start with you. Tell us about him as a man, will you? Because I think sometimes we end up thinking about just the player, but actually this is a man who touched a lot of lives, and reading the testimonies afterwards was a real leader in the community too.
Yeah, and Jerry, he was only 24 years of age, but he just seemed to be a pillar of sense from a very early age, and that was on the field, but as very much so off the field. Heavily involved in his family business, just a decent guy, always organising stuff for the club or for his group of friends. And yeah, I suppose no matter the age gap, I think that's the big thing about him. He was friendly with the older generation lads, and he was able to mix it with the younger guys as well. And everybody was just so fond of him.
Jimmy, you were a teammate from underage as well, were you?
I wasn't. I'm a few years old. I'm 28, so he's 24. And I actually moved to Boston, so I didn't hurl with him until about 3 years ago, really.
Right.
But the minute I came back, you were welcomed straight in by the whole club, obviously, but Dillon especially, he'd be driving you on the whole time, and he was the one that he'd make you go to the gym with him. He'd make sure you're eating properly. He'd ask me if I'm sitting down at home, he'd come up and he'd say, "Buttons, are you after eating, are you?" And if I'd say no, he'd make sure, "Get that into you now," and there'd be shepherd's pie in the fridge and all this, and he'd make sure you're eating. Then he'd tell you go up and weigh yourself and all this. He's just really look up to him, and he's such a good fella.
You have to have the strength of character and personality, emotional intelligence, the people would call it, to be able to carry that off, where you're like, I'm just back from Boston, I'm going to do what I want here.
Yeah.
And some young fella's coming up and saying, "Are you eating?" And you're like, actually, you know what, I'm going to listen to this guy.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I lived with him there for the last 2 years, so he was just he was 24, I'm 28, and it's amazing just how you'd look up to someone 4 years younger than you.
Yeah, that seems to be what you were saying, your experience.
Yeah.
You've been around, you've seen everything.
Yeah, he's 8 years younger, 9 years younger than me, and I still if Dillon arrives onto a train session, the ante is up straight away. He's gone with tip for most of the year, and then arrives back, and straight away there's a 10% increase, 20% increase in training. And if Dillon says something, players listen, and I'm talking about from 35 years of age down to 18 years of age.
And it wasn't even just at the age of 24 he was doing that, because I remember the photograph of himself and the famous Joe Hayes after the 2018 senior
2018 final, yeah.
And he scored a couple of sidelines in that match as well, and he was probably only about 20 or 21, 20. So he was leading from the very outset of him breaking into that senior club team.
Shane, we wouldn't have won that year, that county final, without Dillon. He was the main man at 20 years of age, and it never fought, never shook him, or that responsibility on his shoulders. He just took it in his stride. Absolutely. I just remember there we went down a point, or we conceded a goal, and I think Dillon won the next 3 or 4 balls, and like they were tough balls to win. One freeze, got a score, and you know, for 20 years of age, you're like, this man is going to be phenomenal, and he was. And like it's gas looking at those photographs. Like he was a big player, he was very athletic, tall, but like he'd filled out so much in the couple of years. He just did everything right. But yeah, even at that age, was incredible player.
Are they your favourite memories? Those matches where the game's in the melting pot and he stands up. Is that like when you think back now? Is that what?
That's when you talk about someone with his ability, but he matched his ability with that honesty and application and effort, which is a huge. I don't know what. Yeah, you don't see that in every day. And I just think he had that X factor. When a game is in the melting pot, you say, let's hit it down on top of Dillon. That was, you know, there was no plan, that was your go-to ball, let's hit it down on top of Dillon. And 9 times out of 10, he made something happen.
And like inevitably, he makes the breakthrough to the Tipperary county side as well. And I mean, I think he started all of the games, championship games anyway last year. Like the great quote from Dillon, he was speaking to reporters when he made his tip debut against Cork. He was like, it was unreal. I've waited all my life for this. It's a dream come true. Just to play with the lads, it's a dream. So it was obviously something that was on his periphery for quite some time, but to make that breakthrough must have been so special for him.
Yeah, it was. I suppose that's the thing. It took him a year or two maybe just to settle in there, and any player who goes in with an inter-county team, you know, it's different to your club. It is a step up, so it takes maybe a year or two to adjust. And I think Dillon had that breakthrough year. And I'm sure Liam Cahill, his tip manager, has lost a big part of his panel next year, because he would have been looking at the performances this year and said, yeah, Dillon is very close to being a nail-on starter. But I don't think anybody in the club or anyone who knew Dillon was ever going to think that he wasn't going to break through onto that team, because there's just a level of commitment there and desire to get onto that team and do everything right on and off the pitch. He just had it in abundance.
What was he like as a housemate, Jimmy? Did he clean up?
Some crack now, yeah. he was just different. Like, I don't know, just a pure messer, really. Like, I think that's why we got on so well, because I'm a bit of a messer as well. Like, but, like, just one story. Say we used to go golfing, say in the evening or whatever, and Paddy, the neighbour across the way, came over, and he says, Paddy used to love Dillon. Like, anytime Dillon come out of the house, Paddy'd be straight over talking to him. He's mad to talk to him or whatever. But we went golfing anyway one evening, and Paddy came out and he caught us and he goes, I'd love to play around with you or whatever. And Dillon messing, like, me and Dillon were kind of half messing with him, and Dillon says, you can play with us if you want, Paddy, but I'm playing off 2 and Jimmy's playing off 5. And Paddy was he's kind of scratching the head, but he said he still wanted to play or whatever. But he said he'd play with us 2 weeks later. But he came up to me 2 days after Dillon passing. I came out with the house in Thurles, and Paddy came across and he goes, Jimmy, I'm so sorry to hear like this. And we were meant to be playing golf next week, and you were playing off 5 and Dillon was playing off 2, he says. And I didn't tell him at the time that we were only taking the rip out of him, because I wouldn't hit the ball out of my way, and Dillon was only kind of getting lessons at the time, so he was only getting a bit better than what he was. But I met Paddy a week later and I told him we're only messing with him, so
he finally found out.
Yeah, he finally found out we're only taking the rip.
Jimmy, how do you make sure that the memories that you have stay fresh? How do you keep Dillon part of your life? And because in Ireland, I know we had this conversation very recently with Brendan O'Duffy about his son Ogie. He's written a book about him, and he found the whole experience to be very worthwhile, but also difficult at times. And I was making the point that, like, we're great at funerals. The whole country was obviously shocked by what happened and paid loads of attention. And then you guys went back to the kind of the cadence of the season, playing matches. But after that's over, then the winter's very long. I'm sure you want to keep his memory alive by just talking about him.
Yeah, like, there's so much, like, you can only say so much on air. Like, there's so much stories to tell, and like, all your friends are there for you the whole time. Our club has been so good. Like, our club has been unreal. So, like, we're all actually going away. We're going away to Killarney in a few weeks' time, the whole club together. So that's going to be, like, what can you do? Like, I don't know. You just have to get on with it, really. Like,
yeah,
tell stories about him, and visit his grave and maybe go up and visit his mother and father and Shannon and Kelly as well, like, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure for them it's terrible, but John, that is one of those things that, like, sometimes we can shy away from speaking about people, particularly whose lives are cut so tragically short. I don't know, maybe the right thing to do is just keep talking and, like, you know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'd have to agree. Like, we can't, as much as we have to move on with our life, like, every time we go back down to the training pitch, we remember Dillon. Like, every time we tug out, we remember Dillon. So he's always going to be a part of our life. He's never going to be not. And that's the same for Dan, Hazel, Kelly and Shannon. Like, they have to try and get on with their life as best they can, but they've lost somebody very special to them.
Yeah.
But there's no point in shying away from that. Like, we'll try and support them as best we can. I just think they've been wonderful the last 8 or 9, 10 weeks. I think they've been just brilliant. And they've got huge support from the club, and we'll continue to support them as best we can. But I've never been as proud as, I mean, you're always proud of your club, Canolta Rossmore, but I've never been as proud of them as I have been in the last 10 to 12 weeks. They've just been immense.
Derry City renamed the Brandywell there. Brian McBride, Brandywell, it's very early on, but, like, naming something locally in his honour might be some way of kind of just keeping the conversation going.
Yeah, and I'm sure those conversations are happening in the background. I'd be surprised or not. You know, his uncle is chairman of the club, Andrew Friday, and Andrew has been a wonderful chairman and has been a real leader since Dillon's tragic loss. So, but even, you know, there's small little photographs have gone up around our dressing room now of Dillon in action, or after the county final and those kind of things. So all those small little memories will mean a huge amount.
How were the weeks after in terms of actually getting back on the field and playing matches? What was that like?
I was just chatting with Jimmy here before we came on air, and I remember initially, like the Saturday, Sunday, I was thinking, how do we go back down to the pitch here Tuesday night or Thursday night or whenever we get back? I said, this is it doesn't make a difference anymore, like, you know. And then as time went on, I suppose the funeral was the Tuesday, and we went back down to the pitch Friday night for a few pucks, and it was an eerie setting. Now, you know, I don't even, some people didn't want to be there, some people maybe felt it was right to be down there, and at that point I think people were still unknown whether we were going to compete in the championship as more to get together. But actually, looking back on it now, although we were knocked out at the quarter-final stage, I think it was so important for us to go back down to the pitch. Not even maybe to see where it led in terms of winning a trophy or that, but for everybody, you know, mentally and as the group and as to stick together, it was so important to be there Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, and it gave everybody something to aim towards. And I think Dillon himself would be saying, geez, lads, don't, you know, by all accounts, go down and drive it on.
Yeah.
And there was no real pressure on us. I know maybe the days after the funeral, people were saying, oh, you had to do it for Dillon and that. I don't think Dillon wanted that pressure on us either, or the family definitely didn't want that pressure on us. But I think the most important thing was that we were together as a group, because those few weeks after were tough, you know, and it hit everybody different times. And then we had the month's mind mass in between that as well, which again, you know, was a tough one to take. But I think, looking back on it now, I think Jimmy agreed with me there on that. We're delighted we did go back.
Well, it brought you together, it made conversations happen, it kind of maybe not forced you would have been having those conversations anyway, but it certainly gave you an opportunity to have those, even just the proximity, and maybe some silences where everybody's like comfortable enough not saying stuff. They're the other things that help with coping with that.
Well, there was a first time for everything. There was a first time back at the pitch, there was a first time togging out, there was our first game, there was our first time back in Simple Stadium. All those milestones had to happen at some stage.
Yeah.
You know, so and I must give credit to our management team as well, who are all in-house men that we've recruited, and I just feel like they managed the whole thing brilliantly. And like Declan Ryan, who's obviously an uncle-in-law of Dillon's as well, is so close to him, and like Declan found it extremely tough but still led from the front. John Devan, Jason and Anthony Roach were just fantastic to keep the group of players together. And I suppose at times they probably had to mask their own emotions and to be that bit stronger, to drive on the training sessions, to maybe make difficult decisions, but they did it with aplomb. They really did.
I know that, like, what happened on August 5th kind of struck a chord with people for many reasons, not least because of how it happened and the home of hurling as well in Sepa Stadium. And I know it was referenced in the funeral as well by a couple of people, the fact that died doing what he loved. And I know that's a facetious thing to say in some ways. It can be quick to just surmise that and sum it up in that way. But he did love the game of hurling. And at least that is something to hold on to, I guess, for yourselves and his friends and his teammates.
Yeah. I think, when I even thought when he went down initially, Christian Eriksen was in my head. I says, isn't it a pity now he might miss out in Tipperary next year? Or I said, how is he going to kill the time if he's not hurling? Because if he's not gymming, he's down at the pitch, he's doing something. I said, but little did I think that we'd never see the chap again. But yeah,
I thought he was going to get back up. Honestly, I turned around to Seamus Hennessy. He plays with Killarane, and I says, he'll be fine. He'll be up there in 2 minutes. I was sure. I don't know why. I was just sure he was going to get back up. And then I kind of got closer, and I seen poor Craig Morgan that was holding Dillon kind of up his head, and I just kind of knew then it was going to be bad. But then I seen a stretcher come onto the pitch. Before that, Kira was in the physio and Shannon, and they're all doing very good with Dillon or whatever. But then the stretcher came in, and I seen Hazel, his mother, beside the stretcher, as Dillon was going off, and she was bawling, crying. But still, I thought it was only an overreaction from a mother or something. But then I kind of went off onto the side of the pitch, and I seen Declan Ryan kneeling down with, say, his hand on his head like this, and I just knew there was something bad then,
And it's the first half, and the crazy thing is Dillon was having a brilliant game.
He just laid off a pass to Jimmy.
The last ball he touched, he laid off to me, and I buried a goal. And it was the first goal I've ever scored in Championship hurling, so it was a bit.
He always did him big time.
And I took a big swing. I don't know how I wasn't hooked, to be honest.
But even that play, there must have been 4 Killarane lads around him. I looked at it 20 times. I still don't know how he got the ball into his hands.
And one big regret I have is not saying thanks for that, Dillon. I was out finger wagging to the crowd. Too busy. But it was just a surreal moment, really, wasn't it? And we all went into the tunnel then. Our local priest came across. He was over in the stand. He came across. We were all just saying prayers. We all went into the dressing room. Then eventually, it was all just quiet. And they said we're heading to the local church or whatever. So we all headed out to the local church. Paddy Ryan actually drove out Dillon's car because he went with him before the match. And I just got I got dropped off at the graveyard, and I said a few prayers at my father's grave, and I literally begged him just to please, give Dillon another chance or whatever. And we all went to the church then, and there was kind of a bit of an uplift then when we went back to the clubhouse, wasn't there? And I still thought he was going to be okay. I don't know why, but thought he was going to be all right. And we were inside in the dressing room anyway, and I just said to my 2 housemates, Aaron Ryan and Enda Heffernan, we'll go in home, there's no point sitting around here for the night. And that's the minute JD walked in, and he just says, lads, he didn't make it, and the whole place just bust up, really, didn't it?
Yeah.
That was a tough moment, just heart sinking, But
I think it was I think it was hugely important we were together, though. To hear that news by yourself at home, it's tough anyway. It's devastating news anyway. But I am delighted, looking back on it, that we were together as a group of players. Of course, lads dealt with it differently, and some lads just didn't want to be near anyone, but at least there was support there for lads. But I don't know, was it naively, we did come out with a sense of optimism. Maybe that was just, that's our nature.
That's the last thing you think would happen, really.
When you think of an athletic
even up
young
to
man.
the last moment, you think he's going to be fine,
Well, because it doesn't make any sense. A 24-year-old in the absolute peak of his health, that's why it's so shocking. But lads, listen to you, it's going to take you a lifetime to unpick those. I don't know how long was it between you guys standing in the tunnel and finding out? Are we talking 2 hours, 3 hours?
Not even.
Yeah,
I'd say
about
an hour and a half.
About an hour and a half, maybe. Yeah, and I'd say even at that point, I'd say maybe it took a little bit of time for news to filter back before it was actually confirmed.
Of course.
You're getting all these messages then off everyone, and phone ringing, and it's just pure mayhem for ages after it. But as you said, it's just the way it was meant to happen. He went he went doing what he loved, and he went in his prime. Like, it is nearly better than going when you're 80 or 90 and lads forgetting what you do. You know, everyone's going to remember him forever. Like,
are you all right?
Yeah, I still think it's strange. Like, small things like this only happened the other day. I was sending a snap, and I went down, and there's Dillon in my recents, and I just kind of thought, you know, that's such a strange thing to happen, and like, you know, you don't send it to him, but you see his name pop up in your recents, and then I just remember just clicking out of it, and I didn't send the snap at all. It was only something of food or something, but. And that was it.
Even all the group chats and everything.
He's still part of.
His name is there, like, he's still part of everything, really, like.
So of course, and like my home house, I have to pass Dillon's home house on the way, and you still get that sinking feeling every time you pass. You just kind of go, my God, like, how do you?
Yeah.
You know, us as players, but how does his family cope?
After coming back into the house was weird, like the few days after.
This is your house that you shared with him still?
This is actually Dillon's house in Thurles. Myself, Aaron and Enda Heflin were living in there with him, but Andrea Lucknan's after moving in now, so she's bringing a bit of life to the house now instead. Like, it's hard to bring what Dillon's bringing, but she's doing a fair good job, in fairness to her. But it's just the first few days after moving in without him there, it was weird, like, you know.
I hadn't even realised until maybe was it one of his family members at the funeral was talking about the fact that he was actually born premature because of a road accident. So like a fighter from the very outset.
Yeah, I think it was 6 weeks. Was it premature?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Yeah, and Hazel is a tough lady. His mum is a tough lady, but yeah, that's Dillon's nature. And like, they probably were saying that, you know, to be 6 weeks premature, to be 6'4", and probably 95 kg
95 at least, yeah.
And able to move a good sidestep, very comfortable off left and right. I mean, in terms of an athlete, you just don't get as perfect.
Like, I didn't even realise how, like, I knew how good he was, obviously, but I didn't realise that he was going, like, people came up to me and said that they reckon he could have been Tipperary captain in a few years, and I hadn't a clue. Like, I was like, are you serious? Like, I couldn't get over it. Like, people spoke so highly of him, and it's just...
It's those triggers that you mentioned, like, you know, when you're talking about the Snapchats and the WhatsApp groups, and you know, people talk about hearing a song or something, and I know that even at the funeral, you know, there's concert tickets been brought up, and was it an apron from the deli job he had, and things like that. But there's going to be constant triggers. It's almost like having to... it's torture, I'd imagine, but having to experience it all over again at little mini points.
Yeah,
and it's nice in a way, though.
It is maybe in a way, and I know you have those low points as well. But we probably referenced to it early on that he's never going to. It's never going to go away. Like, it's always going to be. He's always going to be part of our life, and that's just it. And of course we'll miss him. But I think the important thing is, as we said, is that we remember him in the positive ways, and there is only positive ways.
I was going to say there's a million different ways that that can happen, and those conversations and those jokes, like, you know. It does sound like the jokes will last the test of time, you know, and that relationship you have is never going to go away. Like, that's always, and it's always going to be a great relationship, because that's the way that it finished. Like, it is the first winter, as I said, now where there'll be an opportunity to kind of, everybody takes a breath and thinks about what you might do to build something. Like, I don't know what that might be. Like, is it an annual hurling tournament or something like that? I don't know.
There'll be something done anyway, definitely, won't there?
Yeah. And I'm not even sure. I know we have a new AstroTurf pitch gone in there in the last maybe year and a half for that as well. I'm not sure if the club is thinking about something like that, but as I said, I'd be very surprised if our top table, who are brilliant and have led from the front, including Andrew Friday, aren't thinking about something, because definitely Dillon would deserve something like that.
Yeah, 100%.
I think people talk about you mentioned the club championship having to go on, and I know ultimately he's went out to Killadangan, but the Thurles Sarsfields game, and I think that Joe Hayes, who I mentioned, I think he spoke afterwards and said, look, it was a really emotional occasion. He said it was one of the best games he'd ever seen. Like, we talk on the show constantly about stories from the club game that stand out to us, and you know, people are like, geez, that's a really interesting strand from the club game that nearly needs more attention. But it strikes me that performance from you lads against Thurles that day, one of the most powerful things you'll ever witness, because first of all, beating Thurles on any given day wouldn't be easy, but to do it under those circumstances must have been unimaginably tough.
Yeah, I suppose which made it that much more special was it was the day after Dillon's month's mine.
Right.
So that was the Saturday night, and I actually kind of felt I was probably more apprehensive going into the game, and I'd say so were the management, because you never knew what was going to happen to that group of players, because everybody, again, it was, you know, the month's mine was in the pitch in Canolty Rossmore, and it's hard to know how people are going to come back from that. Can you get to a level of that championship pace, that ferocity that you need to compete, particularly with Thurles Sarsfields? And I think we just came out of the blocks and just gave a huge performance. And it probably will be a standout from this year, you know. It's a pity we couldn't go on and go all the way, but certainly when we look back at it, I think it gave, I just remember the outpour. It did remind me a bit of the 2018 county final when there was just people rushing in.
Yeah.
And
did you talk, like, what was the talk in the dressing room before? Were you able to address it or not address it, or what was the right thing to do?
Declan kind of addressed it, didn't he?
We did. We just kind of felt like, you know, that we didn't want to put extra pressure on ourselves, that we had to do it for Dillon.
Well, because, you know, that's not fair.
It's not fair.
Doesn't make sense.
Declan, he kind of said just do what he'd expect us to do, kind of, you know, that kind of a...
Yeah, and leave everything on
and
the
we
pitch.
all know exactly what he expected us to do. Like, was it his first year being captain? It was this year.
Yeah.
So, like, we give it a... we give it a... I can't talk there, I can't talk.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Just give everything you have on the pitch and leave it out there. And I know even our first game back, I remember Declan went to speak and he actually got caught up in the emotion of it. But I don't think even we probably didn't need words before the McCarthy game, which was our first game back, which we got a win, which was huge again. But yeah, just going back to the Thurles Sarsfields game, like, there was grown men crying on the pitch again. And that was probably the first game I think that Dan, Dillon's dad, went to, I think, after, and like Dan was in there, and I'd say all the players as well were just an emotional release, just to say, I'm not sure what it was, but it just was that, it just was a feeling of, you know, it brought a smile to our face, as well as just thinking that he was looking after us up there.
That kind of struck me, Jimmy, what you were saying there about, you know, only realising how good a hurler he was, listening to what other people were saying. And like Brendan O'Duffy said this as well, that nearly at the wake he realised so many new things and stories about his son. Was it similar for yourselves? And I know for his parents, Dan and Hazel, and is it Kelly and Shannon, his two sisters?
Shannon, yeah.
Like, I'm sure so many stories came out. It's a sad occasion,
like
the
Hazel,
wake, but
I think Hazel absolutely loves the stories she's hearing about him now that she never heard before. Do you know, that kind of a...
The ones you're not allowed to tell your man.
Correct, yeah.
That he'd absolutely kill you, like, if he found out you were telling his mother. But she knows most of them now, I know, but there's still plenty to tell. There's loads of stories to tell about him, so there is.
That was what Brendan O'Duffy said. He actually didn't know Ogie until after he passed away, because those stories started to come through and the impact that he'd had on loads of other lives, because, you know, you live with people and you see that one part of their life, as opposed to actually, you know, the thousands of people that you bump into and that you meet across your life. And I guess that's the other way that you keep his memory alive, is hearing new stories and discovering new things.
Yeah, and I suppose the boys lived with him. I never got to live with him. I've been lucky enough to, I think my first interaction with Dillon was, I was in college and I used to come back on a Friday and coach the local primary schools. And of course Dillon was 5th or 6th class, and I just kind of thought, this lad is an animal. Like, I was giving him these complicated drills and he was kind of looking up to me and say, is that all you have? Like,
yeah.
You know. So from a very early age, he just was.
He was a huge mammy's boy, like, really. And as big as he was and ferocious on the pitch, deep down he was just a real softy, like, you know. Like, just a story there, we were out skiing in Val Thorens and we were back at the house, whatever, but he decided to take a shortcut with a few people, but they got stuck in the snow, say. On the way home, they dropped into about 10 or 12 foot of snow. So they started kind of drowning in the snow or whatever, and Aaron came back to the house. Aaron and Claudia got back to the house, and Aaron was freezing, like, he was absolutely shivering, feeling very sorry for himself now, frostbite and the whole lot. And Dillon, they were saying Dillon is still stuck out there. he was stuck with someone else. I don't know who it was, but eventually he came back to the house. He was missing a shoe and he was absolutely freezing as well. And I says, why didn't you ring one of us when you came out with her? And he goes, I did. I rang me mammy, he says. And he out in Valtrend and she's back in Clonard.
What's he going to do? Yeah. He's going to let her know he was okay, I suppose, yeah.
She would have done some panicking if she picked up the phone that night.
I was going to say, where's your shoe? Lads, you've been great with your time. Thanks so much, because I know it's not an easy conversation to have, and yet I think it's necessary. Again, like that whole thing about like just talking about people and keeping their memories alive. I hope it wasn't too difficult for you, but you've done a great job of sharing your memories of Dillon with, I think, hopefully everybody watching and listening this morning. So my thanks to Jimmy Maher and to John O'Keeffe for joining us this morning. That's all we've got time for. Nathan's live this evening. We'll see you tomorrow. Best of luck.
Now then, you're welcome along. Wednesday night rugby. We have Rory O'Connor of the Irish Independent here in studio. You're very welcome.
Thanks, Joe.
And Matt Williams is with us in sunny France.
Not too bad, John. Hey, Rory, how you doing, man? Not too bad at all.
Very good. Well, listen, great to have you with us. So I guess we're still reflecting a touch on the URC action from the weekend just gone. In particular, Munster, the slump continues, the poor start of the season continues. Leinster Sharks really delivered on various fronts, and then Ulster continued their good form. They put 47 points on the Ospreys on Saturday night, winning by 30 points in the end. We'll start with the sports ground. We talked to Jerry Thornley and Fiona Hayes about this on Monday. So Connacht 20, Munster 11. The desperation derby, as you coined it. That spread, by the way, that did quite
well.
A
little bit, yeah. I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, I guess it lived up to its billing. Where does this leave Munster is the interesting question. Is this short-term pain, or is it becoming more serious? You're one of the early proponents that this is a more serious situation, I feel.
It's both, I think. I think that this is a good group of coaches who are taking over a group of players that have been playing a certain way for a long time, and they've recognised that way is only going to take them so far, and they're trying to break them down to build them back up. And they're finding that it's more challenging when they're maybe taking the leash off a little bit, and they're finding that I'm mixing up my metaphors, but they're taking off the stabilisers, and they're finding the kid can't cycle very well, and it's being much more difficult, and they're doing it in an uncompromising environment, because the URC is a much more difficult competition, than particularly for the Irish provinces, because they play against each other more frequently than everyone else. It's a much more difficult tournament now than it used to be. You used to be able to get away with losing 3 or 4 games at the start of the season because it was a long season and you'd get where you were going at the end. You also used to have to qualify for Europe in the same way. Now you have to finish really in the top 6 or 7 if you want to get into the Champions Cup next season, because of the way the thing is set up this year. And so while I do think that these coaches will ultimately get a tune out of these Munster players, it's taking far longer than they really need it to, because they're going to find themselves so far behind the 8 ball. I think they're going to lose. They're going to be in a race for Europe that they can't win, because their games are really difficult. There's very few easy games left in the entire URC campaign, and their confidence levels are shot. I mean, you see them on Friday. I call it the desperation derby, and yeah, you said it stuck, but only one team looked like they got the memo. Connacht looked like they really had their backs against the wall, and they came out fighting, and from minute one they were physical, they were aggressive. They didn't execute right. If they'd executed right, they would have won that game by 20-30 points. They were the better team in nearly every aspect of the game. And Munster looked meek by comparison. They looked beaten when they went out, and even when they managed to get themselves into a leading position, partly because Jack Carty had missed kicks, they didn't know how to kick on. And it was Connacht who rejigged their bench and brought on power, and who finished stronger and looked in control for the last 15-20 minutes of the game. And we've seen Munster, this has not been a vintage decade for Munster, and we've seen low points before, particularly under Anthony Foley, after the Rob Penny era. That first couple of years under Foley didn't go well, and then obviously Erasmus got a bounce, and then Van Gran has been fairly consistently 6 out of 10 pretty much, but Munster expect 8 or 9, but they've dipped again badly now. And it's, they're now in a rut with a really difficult run of games to come. And you just wonder where they're going to find inspiration. The Bulls are coming to town at the weekend. The Bulls are not playing particularly brilliantly at the moment, but they're everything Munster are not in terms of physicality. So that's a really hard game on Saturday. Then it's Leinster at the Aviva. Then it's Ulster, who will be missing internationals, but are still
the second best team in this tournament coming to Thomond Park. Then it's a break to play the Springboks, and then they're into Europe almost pretty much straight away, and that's Toulouse, the best team in France. This season will not get any easier. They've got to get better, and they've got to get it better really quickly.
Matt, what have you made of their performances? You can reference the game just gone. There was Zebre, and then there were the losses in Wales. Just in broad terms, what are we seeing here? Because there can be various theories. Certainly one is this is a coaching ticket, and they've almost given too much information. There's a lot for the players to digest, and that's one of the issues, but there could be several others, I suspect.
There are, mate. Rory's absolutely spot on. There's a lot of change being implemented at Munster, and you have, and I've got to say from first-hand experience, because usually when a lot of clubs I was coaching, I was handing them when they were at the bottom, and you had to change a lot to move them forward. And there's a thing called the J curve of change, and that's when you bring in change, performance levels drop in a J shape. They eventually bottom out and they start to come up. But Munster are certainly in that. There's a lot of change, and the players are not implementing that change on the field. But there's one other big elephant that people aren't talking about, mate, and I'll bring it out there. Look, the quality of the Munster players for a decade, as Rory has pointed out, has not been good enough. And they're not bad players. Not like I'm not suggesting anyway they're hopeless, but they just don't have the world-class players that they relied on in the past to turn them around. They don't have a Ronan, they don't have a Paul, and they even don't have all these wonderful bit players that they had when they were at their peak, like Keith Earls at his peak and Zebo at their peak, that could turn a game with some individual brilliance. They're just lacking that really brilliant player that can just produce something to spark, use Rory's term again, to get that spark. So this isn't, anyone who lays this just at the coach's feet is wrong. Yeah, sure, there has been great change. There is coaching issues there. They need time to implement that. They're not bad coaches. They're very good coaches, hugely experienced, a lot of quality at other organisations. And Munster expect better. But that doesn't mean, their expectations are right. They're not right. And I've thought Munster were going to have a tough 6 months for a considerable period of time, and I don't wish that on them. I've got great respect for Munster. I would love to see them do better, but I'm not surprised that they are where they are.
So to follow that logic for a second then, and shoot this theory down or just play around with it for a moment. So on the quality of player point of view, I suspect Van Graan and that South African methodology would have been his favoured one, regardless of the calibre of player he had. But is there something maybe in the fact that that's a more simplistic game plan, therefore arguably somewhat lesser players can carry it out, and so now that the team has been asked to do more and to play a more progressive style, a more expansive style, that the wheels are coming off and they may not have the players to do it? Is that part of this story here as well?
There's going to be, you're spot on, Joe, and there's going to be a compromise for the coaches somewhere in that, because, the old story, everyone's got a plan till they get punched. And the coaches have gone in with a plan, and it's a plan that it hasn't just been produced out of thin air. They've obviously thought about it. But when that plan's rubber hits the road, there's been there's a gap in performance. So there's what the coaches were expecting and what the players are producing. There's a gap. Now, one way to get yourself into serious trouble as a coach is to keep saying I'm right and the performances are wrong, because eventually that leads to a very narrow alleyway with a brick wall at the end of it. It's a dead end. You've got to adapt. You've got to change. So, well, this is what I thought we could do, but we're not doing that. We've got to change. We've got to do it. And you've got to do it quick, because exactly what Rory says, there's a number of games under the belt. What a Munster, I've got it written down here, Munster 12th. They've got Europe coming up. They've got a really tough draw of Europe. It's not an easy path forward for this team, and they need to move quickly. I very seriously doubt that they can move quickly enough for this season. I think it's going to be a very difficult year for Munster, because they're running out of runway to take off, and they simply don't have that quality of player that's going to be able to change it. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they come out and smack the Bulls really well. But right now, we can only go on the evidence that we can see, and that's certainly what we're seeing.
I think one thing that will give them a boost this week is the return of the emerging Ireland players, because they've been outside of this bubble for a few weeks, and they've actually gone on and enjoyed themselves and won 3 games in a row. And some of the Munster players were some of the best players on tour, including Jack Crowley. John Hodnett's a very, very talented, uncompromising player who can give them some physicality. And Thomas Ahern was one of the best players on that tour. Is a bit of a specimen who gives them something very different, whether it's off the bench. Even last season in their biggest games, they brought him off the bench and he started to really cause teams problems because he's so difficult to play. He's big, fast, strong. He's good in the air. He's got great hands. You know, he was a fullback at one stage, and he's 6'6" or 6'7" or whatever he is. Now they are only coming in midweek this week, and it'll be very telling if those players go straight into the team. Sorry, Antoine Frisch is the other one I'm talking about. The centre they signed from Bristol, French-born, Irish qualified. Looks like he gives you something very, very different. And even the bit we saw of him playing against Cardiff in the opening game, he looked like he could just give Munster that bit of go forward in the back line that they're missing, that bit of spark that we've been talking about. And then he got whisked off to South Africa, and that's a different topic altogether. But now they're all coming back. They're all coming back confident. They've been in a progressive setup, playing progressive rugby for the last 2 weeks in Bloemfontein. They've been playing at altitude, so they're probably feeling pretty good about themselves fitness wise. Shane Daly's another one who's going to come back. He'll give them experience in the wing. So there is good players who they haven't had access to the last couple of weeks who will be coming in, and I think Frisch talked about this with the media last week, how they've actually had a little meeting in South Africa and said we need to go back and give the rest of this team energy. And that's like, they're like a couple of new signings at a pivotal point in the season, and it is pivotal right now because they need to be picking up. They need to win games they wouldn't necessarily have down as wins, or else they're in a hole because they've lost the games they would have expected to win when they were starting out this year.
And Rory, on Matt's point about quality of player and what kind of quality of game plan they can implement, it's quite an interesting one, because the natural follow question then would be, and I might come to you in a moment, Matt, would be, well, in that case maybe the coaches need to be a bit more reductive, simpler game plan, and just get some wins in the short term and play like a less progressive brand of rugby. But like, to be fair, it's not like they've been playing like the Harlem Globetrotters over the last couple of weeks and stuff's not coming off. I mean, against Zebre they scored 3 pick and jam tries. Like, if they've been trying to play this whirlwind style of rugby and it's just not coming off, then I've missed it. Yeah, like it's not even like, oh geez, they won't be able to throw that skip pass anymore. It's not. That's not even what we're seeing.
What's frustrating, I think most people have a bit of patience with this because we've seen that the Van Graan style, like Erasmus got them pretty close, but they still got blown away in the semi-final and the Pro, whatever it was, final that year, when it came to it. And then under Van Graan they got the semi-finals, but ultimately that style just couldn't get them over the line. So people want them to change and want them to have an approach that more suits the, I suppose, physical profile of player they have, because they don't have the horses for that course. But what's letting them down is not the style of play. It's the fact they're dropping the ball. It's the fact that they're throwing passes into touch. It's the fact that they're missing tackles, that they're losing the breakdown battle. The breakdown's actually been reasonably good in their first couple of games, but their scrum got beaten up against Connacht. Their line out got taken apart. They missed line kicks.
Scrum was just destroyed basics against Dragons.
And yeah, this is like, it's
breakdown.
Yeah, breakdown. Yes, sorry. Like, these are the basics of the game, and I think at times they look like they're learning their lines, or they've gone into the play but they haven't quite learned their lines, and they're thinking about it all the time.
Yeah,
and like, they haven't been able to get the game plan off the ground. So there's a lot of information there that they haven't been able to. They haven't even got to translate at all. They're just gone out into the pitch and they're just puking all over the pitch. You know, it's grim. You know, and the errors that are there are then feeding into this general sense of malaise. And I'm sure the game plan looks amazing, and I've no doubt their training's probably pretty good. But then they're getting out there and they're getting the punch in the face, and it's just throwing them completely off.
So maybe, Matt, to be fair, they are trying to play more progressive rugby, but we're just not getting to see it because the basics are so poor.
Joe, I'd be sitting in your camp there with that, where I can't see too much happening.
Okay.
But the reason I'm saying that, quite often when teams are learning new systems and trying to be in places that they're thinking, where am I supposed to be? And you've got to be where your feet are. You've got to play that ball. And it's exactly what Rory said. What's killing them is not the big system, not the big picture. It's the basics of it. You know, the Dragons game and the final minutes, the try that the Dragons scored, the winger catches the ball, comes up, there is a red wall in front of him. There's a line. And they simply haven't spoken about who's got who, and he just runs straight through the line. So, you know, that's the detail of what they're trying to do is taking up their mental space rather than just being in the moment. Now, if you compare that to, say, Leinster, who are playing roughly the same system they played for a number of years, you can see players come in and out. They're very happy to be in that system. They understand where they're supposed to be, and they get on with playing the absolute detail of the game that wins and loses games at the top end. And Munster are failing at that detail. It's not the big picture that's killing them. It's the minutiae, the detail that's taking them apart.
Another interesting thought. So Dennis Leamy talking today to the media, he said, we're very conscious of the future, we're very conscious of the present. We've had to pick 45 players in the last 4 games. 5 or 6 of them have been from the academy, and all of which, bar one, was making his debut. It takes time to blood young players. How you manage and create, that's very important. I genuinely believe we have a crop of young players here that if we manage them right, they can bring us into the next generation, i.e. 10 years' time. Like, are Munster potentially, Matt, flirting with the idea of like a lost season here, and this will be remembered as the season we blooded our core team for the next generation? And can they afford, will the public, I think, say, well, fair enough?
Great question, Joe. Look, I think what I really encourage the Munster coaches to not do is just that, is to say just that, or to say, we're really proud of the people and we're really doing all those things. Because, to be quite blunt, Munster have been saying that for years, and it just doesn't wash anymore. And I really love the Munster hierarchy to come out and be really brutally honest and just say, look, what we're doing is not good enough. We're going to get there. It's going to take time. We just got to keep fighting. We've got good kids here. We're not, but we've got to win now, and we've got to perform now. They don't have to necessarily win now. They've got to perform. And there's a big difference. You're never going to win every game in this competition, especially in Europe where they are. They've got a really tough couple of games. But if they perform, people will see that, and the people can buy into it. When you don't perform, and as in you drop passes, you miss tackles, you miss all the things you listed out, line out, scrum, all those basics, there's no performance. And that's not good for anyone in the organisation, coaches, players, longevity, or the whole bit. So, a lost season is not good for anyone, because all that does is just pushes that pressure down the line for another 12 months. And that pressure won't go away until you get some sort of performance. Again, not necessarily winning, but performance.
I agree with that. But I think if the young player is in form, he should get the go. And I think for too long at Munster, there's been a defined hierarchy where you've got your caps, so you get the nod. And what really frustrated me last year was that Wasps game, when it was unfair on the more established players who went to South Africa and got stuck there. But these kids came in and they were magnificent over in Wasps, and they built something. And then some of them we didn't see again until this season. Some of them we haven't seen since. Pat Campbell comes out this week and gives them the one moment of magic that they had was his finish, which was phenomenal. He's clearly a confident young man capable of playing at this level. He started in that game over in Wasps and he was then disappeared. I know he was playing for the Ireland 20s, but he looked ready for senior rugby, and Munster could have, I think, invested more time into him, and he and that batch of young players gave them a real impetus at that moment that felt like Munster were almost reborn that week, and they just squandered it. Partly because they just never played the players again. Like O'Keeffe hasn't been, I know he's injured at the moment, but he hasn't been seen since. Like the players, fans were singing his name. I know he's rough around the edges, but he looked like CJ Stander at times against Wasps that day. Yeah. And they just, I think what they did was that even afterwards I asked Ian Costello, what do you think these guys could do for the rest of the season? And he said, look, it'll be unfair on the guys and it's a bit of a hierarchy and they have to wait their turn. Well, if they've played well against Wasps, then surely they should be in contention the following week. They've shown they can do it against a good team. They didn't. I think now, if Edogbo, who's looked quite good in the first couple of games, he's only 19. If he's playing well, and someone comes back from international camp, well, the guy from international camp should wait his turn because Edogbo's going well. And I think if the young player's going well, it shouldn't be for the sake of it. If the young player's going well, they should be backed, and that will then help them regenerate the whole thing. And you look at Hodnett, I think he's someone who could do it. Ahern is someone who could do it. Ahern's had to wait his turn behind Jean Klein and a few others, more senior guys, and he should have more appearances by now. Yeah. And to clarify there, young players gave Munster a real impetus, not impotence. Yes. I've been watching too many ads on BT Sport on a Saturday. Well, I guess we'll see how they go against Bulls on Saturday at Thomond. First game at home since April, which you saw what Connacht got out of a home crowd on Friday. I wouldn't say the crowd's going to be huge on Saturday, but being back at home, it should give them something.
Yeah, be interesting to see turnout of that game.
I think there's a real malaise across the board, and people have. This should be a little lift with a new coaching team and all that sort of stuff, but there's a lot of resigned Munster fans out there, and Thomond's hard to get to, and a lot of them live in different counties. They need something. I think that South Africa game in Cork could be really important to them because it's already sold out.
Right.
It's in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. If they get a performance in that game from a bunch of young players without their internationals, that could give them a lift and they could build something from that. But they've 3 big games before then.
Leinster Sharks, Matt, I know our time is pretty tight here, so everybody effusive about this game for various reasons. I presume you enjoyed it?
Yes, great game. It was really what was needed, wasn't it? Just the closeness of it, the way the Sharks came out. Leinster got a few problems with their set play defence this year, and I don't know why that's come about because their set play defence in past years has been excellent, but they've really been caught out a few times. They've been getting very narrow, and the Sharks exploited that. They scored some lovely tries and put Leinster under pressure. But then great character from the team. They fought back, scored some absolutely wonderful tries. Only negative, obviously, was the injury rate. It was a very high attrition game. Really sad for Jordan Lama. From what I hear, he's going to miss the November internationals because I thought he was really in great form. But, Leinster, they've just got that ability, that belief. It's almost a mirror image of what we just spoke about with Munster. They've got a system, they've got belief. They know if they stick to what they've been coached, it provides points, and they stuck by it and they did it. And it also, I think there's a mirror image to this, Joe. When the South Africans came in last year, I remember talking to you, and because of my experience in Super Rugby, saying I think that South Africans are going to be great for the competition. And for 6 months they weren't. They were duds.
Yeah.
And now you're looking at South Africa going, holy dooly, these guys are pretty good. How are we going to get into the semis? How's a lot of these, the Scots and the Welsh, going to get into the semis? We're talking about where Munster are and this South African tour coming up. And we're just starting to see what division the South Africans are in, and they're in the heavyweight division. And Ireland are in there with them. And they're not going away. They're here for the next few years. And the Sharks, who I think are not a bad team, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting, but I don't think they're the best of the South Africans. They came out and put on a display that made for a wonderfully entertaining game with a top Leinster team out in the field. Now, that's not something we could say about the URC or the past editions of the competition that we could say too often about a visiting team coming to the RDS. Far too often they've been one-sided 40-0, 50-0 jobs.
Yeah.
That was a really good game of rugby that the competition needed. There are lots of positives there, mate.
I know you have to run. Thanks so much.
Pleasure, guys. Good to talk to you.
Cheers. Matt Williams there with us. And then the finish was...
what a goal.
A beauty, really. I mean...
This finish, right, I'm going to... So, Louise O'Sullivan plays a beautiful pass. Yeah, Denise O'Sullivan, excuse me. And it has to be hit that early, otherwise Scottish right back gets herself back on the cover. That gap kind of closes up. So, as soon as the pass is paid, brilliant. But after that, Amber Barrett, it's almost like it's perfect.
Yeah.
The first touch, it's got to be a big one.
Yeah.
Away from the defender, use that speed, put a little bit of distance between yourself and the recovering Scottish defender. Then the second touch. That second, I'd be fascinated to talk to her in terms of what was going through her head at that moment, because she's naturally right-footed player. Really, that next touch, you want to take it out to your right, on your right side, to take with the inside of your right foot. But by doing that, you're bringing the recovering defender into play. She might be able to slide in and make a tackle. Yeah. So then you think, well, shift it onto your left, away from the recovering defender. They've no chance. But of course, by shifting it onto your left, you're cutting the angle and you're putting it onto your weaker foot. So I think I'd be interested in asking, was that second touch deliberate in terms of straight ahead?
Yeah.
It was a little touch, so she kept it close. She kept it close to her, but by taking it centrally, she couldn't almost open her body up to take with the inside of her right foot. That kind of that Henri twist your body in motion and slow to the inside of your right foot. So then it really opened itself up for the toe punt, the little toe finish, which is actually a brilliant finish. Yeah. If you can execute it. You don't see it too often. I've played against some players who used to be able to do it. And the great thing is, no backlift. You get the shot off quick. And you'll know keepers never dive, because it comes too quick. They can't set themselves. When they see you twist your body and open your right foot to pass it, they've got a split second to plant their feet and lean that way, and they're on their way as the shot comes. That little toe punt, it leaves your foot so quick, they just can't react. You know, as people think toe punch, you know, in your head, kicking on the streets, you know, the old toe punt. But it's actually a brilliant finish. So that's what I'm saying. From start to finish, as soon as they made the run, the quality of the ball into her, but then after them first 2 touches and then the finish was brilliant. It actually stood alone in terms of what we'd seen for most of the game, which was very kind of frenetic, nervous, fragmented game of football. Probably in a lot of respects was a poor quality game, which is understandable. So much at stake. I've played in them myself. So much at stake. You know what I mean? It's like hot potato job. But that moment, that passage of play was probably deserved to win the game. It was kind of standout moment.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with